Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the office hours, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to the office in a moment. I'm just starting up the bot to make sure it's all good to go. Alrighty. Boom. Connected. How you doing there, Chris? Make sure I don't have any timers on. Let's turn off YouTube. Yeah, let's start off the 24-hour one. Charity. Timer. All right, so welcome back, y'all. I am kind of interested. Are you all interested in more, let's get to the office. Welcome to the office hours, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul, Berserker01, Batman Shelley. I've got my glasses on. Your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub. Welcome, office hours. Office hours is an AMA, hangout, talk, just shoot the shit stream, where we talk about Star Citizen, mostly. So the question I have is, before we get started, and I'd like to know in the comments below as well, do you prefer that I just kind of leave this up here? Like, do you get notifications that these videos go up when they go, when the stream ends? Or would you prefer that I, delist it or delete the stream and then upload the stream afterwards as a video? Because I've been noticing that several people have been saying, I haven't gotten notifications at all. For those of you who don't know, we actually go live Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern here at youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive and twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. So you can join us here. But I also stream on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, usually infrequently. But Info Runners, Soul Citizens, Astro, all running simultaneously. How I cope this first world problem. Rough Riders, just wait about, I don't have my thing. Wait about 30 minutes and and Soul Citizens and Info Runners will be here. I can almost guarantee it. But so go watch Soul Citizens and Info Runners. We're going to do mostly kind of early stuff here. The question is more, would you prefer I just leave this up as a stream on YouTube? Or would you prefer I take it down and then re-upload it? Especially for those of you who are watching this after the fact. Oh yeah, also, if you're, because someone almost always ends up making a comment like, I didn't hear anything about this. I'm interested in this information, but can someone summarize it? I don't have 3 hours to watch this. That's fine. This is a live stream. That's the purpose of this. So I apologize ahead of time. This is just kind of a hangout and talk. We get to the information, we get to it, we talk about other things. Every so often I'll pull some parts out as what I call You got YouTube and Twitch notifications? Okay. What I call capsules. So. Nothing, you didn't miss much. Leaving it up is less work, right? Leave it up. Yeah, it's less work, but the issue is also discoverability and finding these things. All right, so for those of you who haven't been here to a live one, I do a lot of modeling and painting. Got more things to do for sure. But I hadn't been able to do it for many things for a while, but this last week I was able to get some more stuff done, especially with the ending of Dark Tide Beta. Really fun, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, I did 3 streams to Twitch and YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, go watch them. I left them unlisted. I left them up, not unlisted. You can go watch any of them. I might pull some highlights reel together and put it up there if people want, but and maybe pull some shorts out, some mini like moments. But I got back to painting, and I ordered a bunch of stuff from Anvil Industries because I needed to get some stuff for my Space Marines that I still have yet to even start. I'll get to them by 10th edition. And in the meantime, I was like, well, to get free shipping, I just needed some other things. And so one of the things I was going to get was a statue for kind of terrain, and they had something cool for it. So I already had the base, so I ordered this kind of like Martyr's Angel miniature, and I painted it up. So let me do this so you can see. So that was pretty good. Hey, Stardan. Dan. And then I also had been getting back to my roots, my guard roots, and I've got a bunch of guard reinforcements I've been meaning to paint up and get back to my new standard. So. There we go. So I painted about 6 of them. I still have 5 more to do, which are almost complete. I was trying to batch paint them, but I got those to a high standard one to finish them one night. And then once I get those done, I've got another 20... Another 20 to do in terms of infantry, and then I've got some like officers and stuff that I want to get through as well. Is that the Angel in Central Park? Is it? No idea, because they're holding a martyr statue. So, is it hard to learn to paint minis? It depends on your own abilities and your own experience. If you notice, if you look at this, right? You take a look at this. You notice that it's like really well shaded. You can kind of see the folds and everything like that. That's not me. That's what modelers like to call liquid skill, which is a type of paint called shade paint. So as long as you're pretty good at kind of dialing the lines, you don't have like a really shaky hand, and you at least can get a lot of get in and get little details. You can paint pretty good. Almost anyone can learn how to paint. It took me about 2 years to get to this level, and I am not trying to become a better, like a stupendous painter. I'm just trying to match to a level that I'm comfortable with. So, and to give you a comparison, let me pull up the other one. Let me find an older one of mine. So here's an older model that I did of an Imperial Guardsman. All right. It's the old style, but it's hard to tell the details from it. It's a little rougher. The face isn't great. Compare that with the new style. See, it's a little bit more easy to detail. There's still some parts that I fucked up on here and there, but I go back and paint over it if I need to. But side by side, they have almost the same pose. On the tabletop, you probably wouldn't be able to drop them. Hard for me to put them on the table here. I'll do this. I've been doing this, using this nice table for that. You can see which one is better. One's a little brighter. And yeah, it can be definitely therapeutic. And the best part is, you don't have to go too many. Not done. This is still a work in progress, but freelancer. There's even Star Citizen stuff you could paint if you wanted to. That's jrdf.sc if you want to get on that one. Everyone starts somewhere. Everyone's gonna start looking like ass. But if you enjoy it and you have fun, then yeah, keep going. People will always show you their worst minis, and then they'll show you their latest minis to show you, like, I started like this, and this is how I ended up. It's just time and patience and practice. That's all it is. I'm not quite done with it. I need to go over it with like more of like a flat brush to give the shine a little bit more even across it, and then I also have to kind of go in there and get the details, like the more metal details, the gray details, and the more brushed metal. That's probably a good 4 hours of work to do for that one. Probably more like 5. Get up to a standard I'm happy with. Yes, I'm running away from you, Brumman. All right, so that's the painting kind of update. I've been enjoying that. I use painting as a great way of just kind of de-stressing, and this has been a stressful week because it was my professional review week. I think I did pretty well. The administrator I talked to after the fact, I haven't talked to him for debrief, but I just kind of briefly talked to him. He's like, you did fine. So, and that's fine. It's just one of those things where I only get 2 professional reviews a year. One in the first semester, one in the second semester, and that entirely dictates whether I get a raise or not. Not a regular raise, but a bonus. So. How many point army is that freelancer? Well, it's bigger than a fucking Lehman Russ. So easily 200. Thank you, Huck here. I would always suggest if someone wants to get into painting to do it, get a good, nice, cheap paint set. You can get them from like Vallejo or from Army Painter. They do some pretty good ones. Don't necessarily go into Citadel paints. They're a lot more expensive and they dry out a lot quicker. And you don't necessarily have to do Citadel miniatures. They're probably the most popular, the most easiest to find. But they have, if you like Star Wars, they have Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Armada, Star Wars X-Wing. If you like Fallout, there's an entire Fallout miniature series you can buy. And a lot of those other ones are fairly cheap comparatively, compared to Warhammer stuff. You can even get more fantasy stuff, like GW sells a Lord of the Rings. So if you like Lord of the Rings, you can buy some of those miniatures and stuff going. And there's also just generic miniatures like D&D. Like that's a great way. That's how myself and my wife got involved in it. Mostly was painting D&D miniatures. You know, buy a couple, like a blister pack of 2 or 3, and then paint them up as characters you might want to play in the future. And you know, if you don't do well, it's like whatever. It was like $3, you know, and then move on. And thanks for that Twitch Prime sub. Thank you, Richard Sky. You grizzled old man. He doesn't look old. He looks very young. I'll say that. I've met Richard Sky a couple times. At least twice, I think. Fantastic dude. Dark Spike, thanks for that 3 months. And First Tasty, thanks for that 20 months. Oh, I see that he's here to lord over me. The Freelancer is much easier. Yeah, it's huge. Be careful though, because with the Freelancer, with the bigger Freelancer, the parts are a little bit weaker when you're trying to assemble it. And if you're not careful, you can easily, the instructions aren't great. That's my one critique of JRDF is they don't have great instructions. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I think it's explanatory for me because I've built a lot of models. It's harder to do if you didn't know what you're doing. Hey, how y'all doing? All right. Hey, Kid Bang Bang, how you doing? Is that a mic emote? It is a mic emote, isn't it? No, it's not. Just pound it. Am I excited for the Corsair? Of course I'm excited for the Corsair. I'm not excited for the Corsair coming out 3.14, but we'll talk about that here in a moment. I'm not going to make a video of it because I have too many fucking videos I got to release. I've only gotten 3 of the 12 sessions from the 24-hour stream done. I think I'm just going to, I've been trying to let them breathe a little bit. I think I'm just going to start dropping them. Just be like, shit them out, you know. That's a mic emote. Okay. I always think that the pound one is a salty Mike one, just because it looks like him, kind of. It looks like Mike doing a character. All right, so let's talk a little bit about 3.14. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna pull this up so people don't lose their fucking mind, because this has happened multiple times before. I'm gonna turn this into maybe a short so we can see it. So I can talk about it for like news and stuff. All right. All right, so the question has been raised. Will 3.17.4 have a wipe? For those of you who don't know, 3.17.4 is on the cards now. 3.18 has been delayed till early December, which is good and bad. It's good because it means we won't have a dumpster fire, but it's bad that because it means that it could easily slip further and possibly even start release next year, as many people have been predicting. But 3.17.4 is going to be the IAE patch, so we will get IAE then. And someone has asked on Spectrum, will we have a full wipe with 3.17.4? Jake Acapella has said, in fact, no, there is no wipe with 3.17.4, but 3.18 definitely will. And the question was asked, full as in also reputation, and he checked back and said, checked with the team, and reputation wipe is still being discussed. We'll update you once the decision has been made. So, 3.17.4, IAE coming out, and on top of that, no wipe. But we will be getting a wipe with 3.18, possibly not a reputation wipe. So. Now, 3.18. What's the problem with 3.17.4 and 3.18 together? Because the other thing that has been announced is that 3.18 is going to have, or 3.17.4 is going to have. Let me try this again. So, what's the deal with 3.17.4 and 3.18, and why am I personally not looking forward to it? Well, the simplest answer is, I think it's 3.17.4 is going to delay 3.18. Because 3.17.4 is set to have the Corsair, not the Vulture, but the Corsair, and likely some of those other ships which were straight to flyable. And I know this is a celebration for many people. They're very happy about it. The problem about it is, quite frankly, it means that CIG is going to have to move resources, most notably QA, to test these ships in 3.17.4, and heaven forbid if anything's broken or severely needs to be fixed, because then you're going to have more staff from the regular development team coming over to try to fix those ships, and more testing. And while those people who are fixing the ships aren't necessarily working on 3.18, they are in fact working, the QA is. So they is in fact working on that. So if QA gets pulled, that means there's less QA to help test 3.18, to help it get out the door. So, and this has been the problem in the past, where 3.18 or patches will get delayed because there's just not enough QA coverage. CIG is trying to fix this, but so good news for those of you who like Corsair. Your Corsair is going to be out. Bad news is it might be the reason why we don't get 3.18 until like 2023. I wish 3.17.4 was just turn on the IAE and the Corsair. There's going to be at least 3 ships. There's probably going to be the Pisces medical variant. There's definitely going to be the Drake Cutter. and I think a concept ship for the ground vehicle. I'm not too okay with it being a Q1 patch, because if it's a Q1 patch, that means 4.0 probably won't be released until 2024. And honestly, I feel that Star Citizen is already peaked too much on hype. The hype for Star Citizen has peaked too early, and I'm afraid we're going to go downhill until we hit another major release, which means that we're going to see less and less interest because people will not want to play 3.18 to 4.0 if CIG goes ahead and says there may be a wipe with 4.0. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, there's no purpose for a wipe for 4.0 because 4.0 doesn't have any to touch anything. It's like, that doesn't matter if CIG doesn't implement things like, I don't know, more dynamic economy stuff, which is definitely in the cards, especially the longer it takes for 4.0 to come out. And I can almost guarantee you that when the dynamic economy comes online, CIG will wipe the database because they want to have a blank slate to test if the economy is working or not. In my head, they just flip a switch and the ship is ready to fly without any further work. My head is very small. In fact, it was your thread, Star Citizen Dan, that we got a confirmation that Corsair was coming in. It's just one of those things where I'm more concerned about the pace of development rather than what's in the patch. Like, this is going to sound blasphemy, but I don't care about ships. Ships are the least interesting thing in Star Citizen right now. The thing that is most interesting is gameplay for those ships. And we can't get gameplay for those ships without PES and server meshing in, and eventually the dynamic economy. So I'm just kind of like, I'm at the point where I'm just like, I know ships need to be sold and they need to make new ships to sell so they can make money, but fucking I don't care. Make the goddamn game. Hey, Al, how you doing? InfoRunners rating. Hello, InfoRunners. Welcome, everybody. But yeah, no, it's definitely not a flip a switch situation. Anything that moves off the map means it's going to change. And the fact that we definitely are going to get Corsair and, you know, other ships and IAE separate makes me go, yeah, I would not expect 3.18 until March, April, probably April of next year. More than likely, I think we'll probably see it in at Invictus. I think it'll be the patch right before Invictus. And then they'll do a 3.18.1 for Invictus, which just definitely means that it's very shaky if we're going to get a 3 or 4.0 end of next year. I thought for sure if 3.18 comes out this year that we'll get 4.0 at the end of next year around the same time 3.18 is supposed to drop. Now I am not betting on it. I'm betting on 4.0 heading out in 2024, if that. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic. It's just the nature of how it takes them a long time to develop a patch. And when they deploy the patch, then they need to have, you know, they don't know any unintended consequences that can happen from deploying the patch. They have to go back and fix issues, which can lead to fixing patches, and then that delays the development even further. So every time they do a late release, it pushes everything else out several months. So, oh, hey, Pie versus Cake, you missed everything. Yeah, basically it means we have a whole year with 3.17, which I know sounds terrible for you young whippersnappers, but come here, stay a while and listen to the tale of old Star Citizen 2. Is it 2.7 or 2.6? 2.6.4. Back in my day, we had a patch that was updated in February, and then not updated again until December. Hey, Paul, can you deal with these kids? All right, all of you are going to the principal's office because I'm not dealing with your bullshit. 263, yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly, Macton. Macton's laying it down. We had 260 days of 263. We've only had 175 days of 317. So shut your fucking mouth. And we had 263 without another .x patch. We'll have four .x patches of 317 where they're updating and fixing stuff. So I don't want to hear any complaints. I'm going to do the old crotchety thing. Kids these days don't have patience. No, but I get it. I get it. I 100% get it. I'm fucking pissed too. All right, do you think the new EVA mechanics introduced from EVA? By the way, y'all should go check out Info Runners on YouTube. You'll find me there. You'll find Algrid. You'll find Space Tomato. You'll find Drinkers. You'll find Croncy. You'll find Morphologist. You'll find pretty much everyone who does Star Citizen. We'll hop on the Info Runners at some point. YouTube.com/TheInfoRunners. 407 patches ago. Yeah. Do you think with the new mechanics they're introducing from EVA, fuses in ships, repair, rearm, fight changes, AI, etc., that ships will have all have to go through major redesigns for a chance to balance this as a game? Did they develop the game a little backwards with now having to get the ships now completely, or are you worried about insignificant ships not making it? So there was always going to be an issue because the problem of Star Citizen is that Star Citizen is a game that would never be published any other way than it is currently being published. There is not a single gaming publisher which would let Star Citizen CIG do what they're doing now, which I know to some people is a bad thing. To other people, it's a good thing. Effectively, we would not have the game that Star Citizen has become even now without the crowdfunding model. Not make enough money. And I know a lot of people are going out there, but Paul, $500 million sounds like a lot of fucking money. And I'm going to sit here and tell you, it really isn't. Not for the size of CIG Studio. Not at all. It's just not. It's peanuts. Because it's not $500 million sitting in front of Chris Roberts as he's like snorting white lines off of naked ladies. That's not what's going on. That's $500 million over 10 years. So let me do the calculations. Let me bust out the calculator so I can get this proper. So we've got $500,000 divided by 10. That's $50 million a year. $50 million a year on average. Oh, thank you. Thank you for watching the show. That's nothing. That's less money than, like, I can guarantee you that Plague Tale, the most recent game, Plague Tale that came out, good game, you should go buy it. It made more money on release day than that. I can guarantee you it made more than $50 million. That's not a lot of money, especially when you have to keep the lights on and pay 800 to 1,000 employees, plus contractors. But AstroPub, I can see Chris Roberts swimming like Scrooge McDuck from here. Yeah. It's absolutely nothing. And it's important to keep that in mind. I'm going to run an ad real quick for you. We'll get back to you in a moment. I know. I'm getting off a little bit there, expat, but I wanted to give you some context for that first, because the problem is, at its core, is that Star Citizen does not work with this current model. So, or works with this current model, would not work with any other model. So because of that, CIG had to release the ships to be playable now. They would have never gotten away with traditional shut the fuck up and let us develop the game with this model. So that's the downside of it. They're going to have to, yes, they will have to update all of the ships, and no, there will not be a balance. Star Citizen will not have a game built around balance in the way that traditional games have. Like this gun does a little bit better than this gun, and this gun does better than this gun. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have a straight up balance with that situation. There will be ships or weapons that are better than others. However, there's likely not going to be a ship or weapon that is the best all-rounder, because Star Citizen's real balance has nothing to do with the ships and has everything to do with everything else in the game. Number one balance feature that people don't pay attention to is distance. I just ran a fucking ad. Hey, Paul, changing from Twitch sub to Patreon and waiting on YouTube now. Thank you, David. More for me, it seems like is there an inability to keep deadlines, or just what I thought from only backing the last 4 months. Yet I've been falling off since Kickstarter. Let me put it this way. Let me finish up this question real quickly and I'll move on to that. The reality is that distance and fuel consumption is as much of part of the game as pew-pews. Logistics is the balance and will always be the balance. A great way of putting this for any Mech Warrior fans, if you're a fan of Battletech lore, I can't remember the name of the battle, but it's the battle between the Inner Sphere and the clans, where the Inner Sphere, the Combined Forces commander challenged the clans to like one climactic battle for the control of the entire Inner Sphere. Tukiad, thank you, Tukiad. And so the clanners used their AC-10s. So they brought in mechs. They had superior mechs, and they brought their big, heavy shell throwers. But the Inner Sphere brought in lasers, which required maintenance but didn't require ammunition. So even though the clan had an advantage in technology, they wasted it on logistics. So their logistics was shit, and then they ended up losing because of attrition, because all the Inner Sphere had to do was drag it out until they ran out of fucking ammo, and then they could just kill them as they please. It's that situation. That's how Star Citizen balance is going to work. So yeah, there may be a weapon that is fundamentally the best gun because it has all of the best characteristics, but the counter for that will always be its cost, its maintenance, it's how to run it. Money sinks are not in the game yet, so there's some of that kind of stuff. So I get the concern, which is like, all of this looks like it's a huge undertaking and everything's going to have to get redone. And to a degree that's true, but to a degree that's not true. All the ships do have to get redone, but it's not like they're going to go through and rip out the interior of every ship in the game. They're just going to have to add portions of things to the game, like fuses, to various parts of the of ships to make them work, which is a lot easier than it sounds, because it's just take this panel and pop it out. And in a lot of cases, CIG's already done that with newer ships. Almost all ships have component casings and other random casings, which likely will be used for fuses or other things. And the interior of, and the only thing that matters is the interior of larger ships. The majority of Star Citizen ships are smaller one-seat or two-seater fighters, or smaller ships. So those won't be nearly as difficult to improve. Citizen Con Freebies was lackluster? Yeah. Everyone wants the freelance to get changed. It's just, it's the interior of the freelance and the Connie need a desperate overhaul. They just don't have time and resources for it yet. All right, so for me, it seems like their inability to keep the deadline from just what I get from the backlog of the last 4 months. I've been following off and on since Kickstarter. This is something I got into conversations with on Twitter, which is always a mistake, but and other people about, and I've heard people who have legitimate experience in project development and in software development sit here and argue with me, and I'm like, bro, you fucking know this. It happens in your own gut, and they agree with me when I get to the heart of the matter, and then they completely say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Star Citizen, CIG, will never ever get dates right. They will never, ever get dates right. You know why? Because no one gets dates right. Not a single software developer in the history of the universe has 100% predicted every single date on milestone for all of their projects incredibly accurately. They've either been over or under in some way, shape, or form. Now, obviously, under is good, but there's never been an 100% perfection because that just doesn't exist. Well, I say that and someone's gonna be like, "But Paul, actually, this one," it's like, let me caveat, especially with complex problems. With complex software or complex anything, you're going to have problems. And thank you so much, $1 for that 40 months. And thank you for that Twitch Prime sub there, Armadera. Hey, Jabermax. But because they're never going to meet those deadlines, the question we should be asking is, do we want them to tell us that their internal deadlines? Or do we want to just have us shut the fuck up and let them release it when they're done? Because those are the two options. We either get 100% or as close as possible to when they know that we know, or we don't hear shit and then they just release it. There's two problems with that. One, if they go radio silent, which they've done in the past, people lose their mind and make up shit and start saying that the project is finished with, it's terrible, it's been too long, they haven't told us anything. But then when they tell us things and they miss dates, people lose their mind because, but you promised, it was on the promise board, you checked it off, this was going to happen. And the answer is, it's a moving target. Shit's gonna move all the time. You don't have 100% understanding of everything that's going on. Personally, I like what they've been doing recently, which is, hey, we tested it, it doesn't work, here's our new target date. That's fine in my book. In fact, that's better than fine. That's what I want them to do all the time. Because, and it kind of, honestly, it kind of pisses me off when people get really super like upset about that. Because it's like, I want them to communicate. I want them to tell us what's going on as much as possible behind the scenes so we know why delays are happening. Frankly, it helps us, not just content creators, but fans, set some better expectations. CIG is trying to set expectations for the community, and we should be helping them with that. We should be lauding them for that, not getting angry because it missed a deadline. Deadlines are gonna get missed, especially when you're doing a project like Star Citizen, where there's like fucking 90% of it is R&D, brand new stuff that's not been created before. They have to build from scratch. It's just the kind of nature of the things. If it takes longer than JWST, I have no what JWST is. The problem is that, like, communication over radio silences means you're going to hear the internal dates getting missed. You're going to hear disappointment from them when they don't miss things. They don't make things. And those are our options. You're not going to get CIG, the perfect crystal ball, contemplating his orb kind of situation. It's just not going to happen. The best we can hope for is more granular communication. Question, are you concerned that Star Citizen seems to be focused on engineering and programming and not giving gameplay more purpose? Seems like they're counting on engineering manifesting gameplay. D Kazar, I want to know, and this is not like an assault thing. Have you built a game before? Because this is something that I have learned over the last several years, not just following Star Citizen, but looking into how games are developed. Because generally speaking, not many games build gameplay first. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have gameplay in mind and they try to build that out. But often they want to build the tools, the foundations of the actions, and then build the gameplay from that. Because often gameplay changes. Gameplay will change all the time, frequently, and it's important for it to change. A great example of this is Horizon Zero Dawn. Originally, Horizon Zero Dawn was going to have guns. I shit you not, they were using guns in it at first, and they removed the guns entirely for more of a kind of more primitive aspect. Famously, Halo was an RTS. The first Halo game was going to be an RTS. Then it became a third-person shooter, and then it was going to be a first-person shooter. So, like, gameplay is literally the most flexible aspect of a game, which sounds weird. But where you actually dial in gameplay to make games fun is beta. Because once you have the framework, once you understand what the game is going to look like, or you think it's going to look like, then you start developing gameplay stuff so that people can play and give you feedback, and then you can tweak it. Level design changes, the way that you balance weapons and how weapons will react, cosmetics, all those sorts of things. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to change those things while you're still building the base building blocks for what the game's going to become. They're estimates, not deadlines. Basically, yeah. They're not deadlines, they're estimates. So have they reached their limit of their tech, their capability, their architecture, or is it simply just nug work of debugging something complex? Where are they now? That's a lot of questions. What are you asking? Where are they now as a game? Individual gameplay aspects? Because I can tell you they haven't finished building their architecture yet. They still need persistence, which is in the form of PES, which should be coming out in 3.18, which may or may not come out this year. And server meshing, which is the other aspect of the technology they need to build to be able to increase the playscape. And a lot of those things need to be put in place before gameplay can be added to the game, which would take advantage of those or uses those things. Like tracking a target. How do you deal with a bounty hunter tracking a target that goes between servers in the game, you know? Yeah, they're not done building the actual structure of the game yet. And they're currently at a situation where, like, they literally cannot build anything else until PES comes in. Like, nothing else can be put into the game in terms of gameplay until PES comes in. They have hit that brick wall. So they have to wait for PES to come in so they can start building on top of that. They've already said PES is required for salvage and it's required for cargo. Both those things are needed, need PES to function. And you got it right. Yeah, architecture development is very hard when you're mid-project. Not just mid-project, but mid-project that's already released. That you have to support a live environment on top of that. That shit's fucking difficult. Which is the reason why they shifted a lot of their gameplay aspects to the more completed side of the project, which is Squadron. The Squadron doesn't need PES. It doesn't need server meshing. It has all of the basic building blocks of technology in it already. So it's a lot easier to build on that technology, which doesn't have to be constantly updated for a public release, and then port that over to Star Citizen. It's partially because Squadron is more done and it needs to get out the door earlier than Star Citizen, and partially because they don't have to fucking answer to the goddamn public about it. I'm not too sure if it needs PES, because I don't think it's an always online environment, though, Darsh. Yeah. Am I worried about CIG being too flexible, or do you think they need some sort of fixed anchor point in which the flexibility can fail? What are you talking about, Fishy? Same with the movies. ETA was going to be a horror film. They changed it to what ET is now. Goddamn, yeah. Can you please just use my Hull C as a mobile home until the cargo refactor comes? I think they're hesitant to release the Hull C for the same reason why they don't necessarily want to release the Idris and the Javelin, because there's just not a lot of gameplay aspect for it, and it would waste a lot of server space. Like right now, the Hull C would be more of a detriment to the game than an asset. Until server meshing is in, or until persistence is in, it's until like the economy can be simulated better in a larger scale, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And none of this is meant as an attack on any one person. This is just more of me trying to illustrate what I have discovered based off of my own research and my own understanding of how software development and how gameplay development works. Where's Boxcar? This is 3/5 of a show. God damn it, Sandy. Is Gen 12 and PES linked? Like, you can't have one without the other? I don't know about that. I definitely know that Gen 12 is needed for larger draw distances, so you'll be able to see more, so things can like be populating the horizon a lot more efficiently. But I don't think they're necessarily linked. It's just Gen 12 is done, so they can put it out there. Yeah. Fog be gone. Yeah. Part of me wants Gen 12 and 3.14, 17.4, but I also don't want to delay 3.18 further. Yeah, that's my concern, is that anytime you add something to a new patch, specifically, you know, like IAE and stuff like that, you're going to delay, you know, 3.18 further out. But we don't know. We might actually see 3.18 go out into Evocati sometime before IAE goes live, at least based off of CIG's own current internal estimate of December. Then we should be seeing 3.18 go for another round of testing to see if it works, you know, in a week or so, maybe next week even. Because it should definitely be in solid Evocati before IAE. And for anyone who doesn't know what IAE is, it's not the way it used to be, which was around the first week of November. They've moved it to the third week of November because that corresponds with US Thanksgiving. And also just so happens to correspond with Black Friday. And you know what I'm saying. Money. We need more money. That's what I'm saying. Paul, I'm so excited that our Drake Corsair is to take flight. I'm very excited to see my Drake Corsair as well. It looks pretty cool. Up to 11, yeah. My brother's an engineer working on a gaming software house, and I admit that citizen developers are masochists, but he's also amazed by them. The thing is that, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know a lot about the technical side of things. I know a little bit about how management works and just how the theory behind game development. But I will say, I know a lot about the employment side, because I talk with a lot of this is how this works. If you stand around in Star Citizen's community long enough, you'll recognize that a lot of people start disappearing and start re-showing up with CIG tags. Because at this point, I'm pretty sure that 60 to 80% of the community or of the company is made up of former community members who just did cool shit and then ended up getting jobs at CIG. So I as a result, just by being around the community since 2014, I know a lot of people who are CIG employees now. And what I will tell you is that my experience talking with them in a more personal level, as like a, hey, how's job going, that kind of stuff, is that CIG does a good job of treating its employees fairly well. Every so often you'll hear some news about them doing X, Y, or Z. And it's not that I don't necessarily believe those folks. It's just, it's hard to believe it when I hear so many other people going out of their way to be like, no, this is fucking fine. This is the best one of the best jobs, if not the best jobs in gaming I've ever had. CIG gives generous amounts of time off. They give really good benefits for like health benefits and retirement benefits. They always hire from within first if they can do it. If you want to work as a level designer and you're a QA, they'll find a way to get you to that level design job if they can do it. Because they want to keep people around. I've seen people who worked in community who got transferred to QA. I've seen people who've worked in QA who got transferred to, the freaking servers. Like, so from a gaming as a job perspective, CIG is very good to their employees, which is a fucking miracle considering how horrible most gaming houses can be to their employees. The developers often get shat on. And when I see things like 3.18 coming out and I see people complaining that CIG missed a deadline, I kind of want to throttle some people because I'm like, you want crunch. You're telling them to crunch. I don't want them to crunch. I want them to enjoy their fucking jobs. I want them to be relaxed. I want them to be focused. I want them to have plenty of time off. If they could get fucking shiatsu massages while they're working, I'd love them to do that, because that makes better games and makes better and longer lasting games. And I want them to stay in the fucking job and not have to go somewhere else because they get burned out. Post my YouTube? It's in the below. But it's youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive. TheAstroPubLive. Yeah, we get treated like dirt sometimes. Sometimes. I think it's gotten better, depending on where you work as well. It's gotten better, but like famously, Ubisoft is a crunch factory. EA is pretty bad for a lot of their subsidiaries are pretty bad. Microsoft and Sony have some problems with that as well. I was a product owner for software developer effort. The pressure to deliver pretty things is huge. Had to fight off management for 2 years to do architecture development up front. It was so worth it. Yeah, it's just, and you can tell the companies that have worked together and worked for a long time, because their products are usually better, or at least they have a singular vision. Which is why I'm a little hesitant about Bethesda, but Bethesda in general, in my experience with them, with people who've worked for them, is that they're fairly good for their employees. Not perfect, and they definitely still do crunch. But because the company has been around, the people who've been working on their games have been together since like Morrowind, so close on 20 years. They know how to fucking work together. So they can fucking go. If they need to do something, they can just do it, because they know their engine, they know their fellow employees, they know their team members very well, they know how well they can flex and work, and they can work. Yeah, people be patient. Please don't trust the Ubisoft. Yeah. Activision though, peach of a company. Absolutely no issues there. Of course not. That's not. It's totally no issues, which is why Activision is hurriedly trying to sell themselves to Microsoft so they can get away from federal prosecution. They need to do TES 5 or 6 ASAP. Then, I mean, they're going to take their time, which is another reason why I think Bethesda does pretty well. Is like they've said we're doing a next Elder Scrolls. It's coming out. Don't fucking know when. Let us get Starfield out first. And I know a lot of people get upset about it because, like, I don't know, so Starfield could suck. It's like, it could, but I don't think Bethesda wants it to suck. I think they want it to be good. And Bethesda, hopefully, modern Bethesda with Daddy Warbucks Microsoft money will be able to make more products in a better fashion. That's my hope. But do I think Starfield will put pressure on Squadron 42 to be released? No. Nothing will put pressure on Squadron 42 to be released except for CIG's own financial situation. They said it wasn't Fallout in space, but what if I want Fallout in space? Mods? Maybe? I don't know. Plenty of room in the gaming world for space sci-fi games. Can't wait for Starfield and Star Citizen. Yeah, the other thing to remember is that Starfield, at its core, is an RPG, and Squad 42 is not an RPG. And I'm already hearing, but Paul, what about the skills that Squadron 42 is going to have? And I like to respond, it's not fucking skills, it's attributes. And it's more of a reward for playing in a certain way. Yeah, Starfield does have a Cuddy Black in it. And it's seamless ground to a moon space to moon landing, so it's got to be good. You're always going to have bullet sponge bosses, Macton. But I think CIG's does a little bit better job at making it more believable that those guys are bullet sponges, heavier armor, larger like weapons, that kind of stuff. Maybe CIG will rip off Fallout 4 base building. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it. All right, Jaybird. But yeah, no. Squadron 42 is not coming out until the earliest 2024. My guess is more like 2025, but we won't know until we know more information. It's hard to really tell because while we do see lots of progress on lots of aspects of the game, what best help us understand is if CIG comes out and says, we've reached beta stage. If CIG comes out and says that we've reached beta stage, then we have a better idea of where they are. Because if they're done with alpha and they're into beta, that means that they're done building the framework of the game and they're into building the gameplay and making the gameplay fun. I'm waiting for Paul to announce he's joining CIG's lore team one day. CIG's lore team needs writers. And while I do like to enjoy writing in my free time, which doesn't exist anymore, I'm not a writer. And I don't have the technical skills that they're looking for writing. So if I was to join CIG, it would likely be in the community department in some way, shape, or form. But even then. So World War III or Star Citizen comes out first. That's a hard sell. I don't know. Depends on which World War III we're talking about. In theory, World War III could start tomorrow. Just dropping by to say I hope everyone had a good day, and if you didn't, I hope you get better. Thank you for your drink water, everyone. Thank you, Normandy. Unlike most game devs, at least Star Citizen will push your hardware like it's beyond the year 2015. Everyone should just start asking. Okay, so I know they're planning on putting Star Squad 42 tech in the PU, and they'll address other game systems after. But aren't they planning for even more single player games? Worried we'll get a combat game. So it's important to remember that the reason why Squadron is taking so long to build is that they're building it alongside Star Citizen. Once they release Squadron 42 Part 1, Part 2 is going to use the exact same technology and the exact same base tools that Squadron 42 Part 1 was using. It's the same game. And if they want to improve anything, they'll use Star Citizen's improvements in graphics or hardware or sound or anything else like that. But because they're fundamentally two different games, what we're getting right now for Star Citizen is combat. But you'll know that Squadron 42 is wrapping up because they'll start moving away from combat and more towards mining, salvage, and trading, and those sorts of things, which we're already doing. So I don't think Star Citizen is going to end up being just a pure combat game, because they have entire teams dedicated to those aspects, which are currently coming to fruition on a patch-to-patch basis. Small things, reputation, the cargo refactor, the Quanta additions, salvage tier 0, those sorts of things are moving in the direction of more civilian stuff. And also, listen to Todd Pappy speak. Todd Pappy is a violent zealot for Star Citizen. He wants gameplay loops. He wants career loops. That is what he wants. And he thinks it's the priority for Star Citizen to have career loops. And he's lost that battle because Squadron is more important right now. But once Squadron 42 is finished in terms of its completion of the basic building blocks phase, I know Todd Pappy will beg, borrow, steal, or outright overthrow teams if he has to get those people back on Star Citizen to build the stuff he wants. So, everyone should start asking Daddy Elon for some cash for Star Citizen. Oh, God. Kyle Smith asks, question, given its current status on the progress tracker, do you think there's a chance we'll get our first look at the band immersion this IAE, even if it's just the exterior walk-around display? I mean, we already got a couple of band immersion. Are you talking about, like, final art? Probably not. Maybe. They usually do little snippets with like, talking with the designers and stuff at IAE, so I guess it depends. World War III would bring us into the Fallout or Star Trek universes. You could argue that opening stages of World War III have already started. Oh yeah, I'm not getting into that, but I know what you're talking about. No one ever knows that you're living through a historical period until you've already started, until you are already in the middle of the historical moment. Did focus on his words when I get lost in those dreamy eyes. Yes, he does have dreamy eyes. I, for one, support this Todd Pappy mutiny. The Squadron 42 trailer popped on my YouTube feed yesterday. The posted 4 years ago made me very sad. Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind spoilers, there's been that spoiler trailer, spoiler sizzle reel that's been popping around YouTube that gets put on my recommendations feed every 5 fucking minutes these days. And while the spoilers aren't bad, anyone who's watched it will tell you there's no real like in-depth story spoilers. There is spoilers in there. They're minor. If you cut them out, it wouldn't be as bad, but you know. Do we think World War III would affect the internet speeds? I'm trying to get a sense of how much problem it would be. I don't think we'll see a BMM physical model on the show floor now. They're not that close. Maybe a miniature, but I don't know if we want Elon to be put in charge of Star Citizen. I don't think it's a good idea. Remember the issues of the show floor? Yeah. What I want is in-game ship models. You mean like tiny models that you can have that are in-game that you can play around with? They have those. They used to be hangar flare, but because the hangar is gone, we don't have them anymore. Yeah, we had them. They're I forgot the name of them. It was a modeling in-lore modeling company that made models of every one of the ships. In fact, here. This cover for JRDF is partially inspired by those models because they actually had their boxes that you could have, and then the fully assembled and painted model for your hangar. Like Taketsu or whatever. Yeah, but we've not had the hangar for like 2 years now. Hey, let me pull up the store. I'll show you. It's actually still in the store, I believe. Under extras. Maybe it's under the subscriber store first. Go through all the subscriber stuff. Here we go. So right here, you see these? Realistic ship model of the Xi'an Cartu All is the 6 collectors and Star Citizen ships. Display your Cartu All with pride, and then collect more models to complete this set. So you see that box is very similar to JRDF's box, which is, you know, purposeful. We got a Gladius, we got an M50, we got the Delta, we've got the Aegis Avenger, we got the Starfarer, we got the Aurora ES, we got the Mustang Beta, we got the Sabre, the F7CR Hornet, the Reliant, the Gamma, the Gold Herald model, and there's more down here. That might be it. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, like they have them, you can purchase them, but you just can't display them at all. So. Let us build models in game. Oh god. What's that that one for the pyro for the Cartual? I think it's a racing paint that they had. I don't think they've ever released it though. Does anyone know if ships burn hydrogen fuel with engines off but power on? Not right now, but they eventually will. Those microtransactions. Hey, for completely cosmetic shit that you can't even use in game right now. If I was to say something right now, I would say CIG take those off the store for now. Anything that is based off of hanger flare should be removed from the store until the hanger comes back. But I don't know if that's true, Darsh. Maybe, because like we definitely have hydrogen fuel that we burn for maneuvering thrusters, but that may also again be. You're right in the sense that it may be a power plant fuel, and that once your power plant runs out, then you're out of fuel. But there's a way you can be out of fuel and still have power, sort of thing. No, you have to be a subscriber, Velocity. You have to be a subscriber to get access to those. These are all on the subscriptions side. Because hydrogen, it's the same reason why hydrocarbons are so expensive in reality. You know, petroleum isn't that too complex of a hydrocarbon. We can build it in a lab if we have the right elements. But the actual process of refining it and building it is important. Hydrogen as its own is common, but it's not hydrogen that you use. You use other forms of hydrogen like deuterium or other things. You know, hydrogen bombs are made out of hydrogen. Why are they expensive to maintain? Because tritium. Yeah, the fusion is a technology that has existed in the Star Citizen universe for hundreds of years. So. Fusion is only 40 years away. Oh god. Space OPEC? Yes. 318 when? Oh, I can't do that on YouTube, but yeah. 1 hour. 318's in 1 hour. Yeah, the Platinum Bay terminals often have the Sabre, the M50 models on the table. They do. There's Dracon. Nah, I'm not really doing a capsule today. There's not much information for capsules. I've done a couple of small little snippets, which I'll probably pull out as shorts, but... They're handing out 318 on floppies. Got to request it. Cyclone or Grey Cat better for a rally? Say Cyclone. Just hands down. It's faster. Easier to handle. But it's obviously that the Steve is designed for how the game will be, and the Cyclone is how the game is right now. Last we heard, they're currently pushing, or as of Monday, they are shooting for early December for release for 318. The STV has a higher top speed. The difference is that the RC has boost and the Steve doesn't. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Inforunners. Thank you, the X. I mean, if it's using deuterium or tritium, it wouldn't make a lot more sense to have refueling ships on water planets to get heavy water from the massive increase in density for processing rate. Yes, possibly. Or they invented some form of hydrogen that they use for fuel so that you get them from gas giants. The answer is we live like there's a point where reality breaks down in Star Citizen, and it's right at the fucking beginning, and people completely ignore that, which is in the 30th century we wouldn't have space fighters flying at sub like speeds that are less than the fucking modern day jet fighters fire at. Why? Because it's not fun to do what would actually happen. Not in a setting like Star Citizen. So you already bend reality a little bit. I'm sure there's some science they can pull out of their ass about hydrogen that's found in gas giants that's better for burning than hydrogen found in water. My guess is something similar to why fusion uses a special type of what's the element that's that people have been thinking about fusion that's like all over the moon. No, it's not uranium. Deuterium. Helium-3. Thank you. Helium-3. So it may be that there is an aspect of the process or aspect of the fuel that uses helium or a special version of helium that's harder to find. Helium, part 3. Do you think CIG will continue selling ships after the game releases? Yes. And isn't that pay to win? No. So that's where all the released Helium-3's all over the moon. So that's where all of the released balloons have ended up. Exactly. I mean, speed of sound is 343 meters per second. So the new combat speeds seem pretty on the spot. Is the combat speeds below 300 meters per second? It'd be on the spot if it was World War II. Or like Korea, like 1950s. We have moved beyond that to beyond the horizon engagements with missiles. It's not happening in Star Citizen's universe. No, but I wouldn't call it pay to win because Star Citizen has the aspects where the most powerful ships require multiple people. So if you just bought a ship like an Idris, then you wouldn't necessarily win. You wouldn't win really anything, even in combat situation, because you'd still need to have A, the skill, and B, the crew to run it, and it would still cost money. A lot of people don't take into account things like money sinks. There's a great video I watched that someone linked to me of Nubifier, where he does these community concerns thing. And the latest community concerns one he talked about was mostly about how people were upset that Pyro is not Pyro, because the lore of Pyro is different from what it's on the Arc star map and what's been presented so far, which I'm going to do an entire just a lore episode. I'm going to break down, like, did Pyro change? Yes and no. Does that matter? No, because buckle up. Take some seatbelts, buckle up, because lots of shit's gonna change in the near future. Does that mean that these systems aren't at all the same? No. Pyro is still Pyro. It's always what it was going to be in terms of a lawless hellscape, Mad Max, Fury Road, crazy shit. That's what it was designed to be. It's gonna do that. They're just going to find reasons for you to go down to the planet, because back when Pyro was originally envisioned, there wasn't landing on planets. And that's going to be the case for every system that's added from now on, because every system now is going to have landable planets. It's a lot more boring to spend lots of time and energy and effort to build out a planet, only for it to be a lifeless ball of rock that has no interest other than tiny points of interest you have to put in there. So in an abandoned system, having a bunch of moons that are empty except for, like, maybe minables, pretty boring. So CIG is going to do their best to change things up where they can to make things more lively, more atmosphere, more terraforming, that kind of thing. But part of that whole thing is, what was it? Part of that whole thing was someone. Trying to figure out what we were talking about earlier. Just finished teaching. You're my talk back to the tribe home. I'm gonna. Okay, nice. Congratulations, Mitch. Welcome back. Wusaw, you finished. You're good. I don't know. I've lost the thought. There's something that Nubifier said specifically, because there's one of the things was in there that he basically said something to the same effect, like. Oh yeah, that a lot of people don't realize, because the person who's asking was asking for money sinks, because it's like people make too much money right now. Nubifier was like, what you're asking for is money sinks, which that's been part of the plan since 2011. It's been planned since before Chris Roberts announced the project that they were going to do money sinks. It's one of the things they sold the game on. Insurance is a money sink. Docking fees, healing, food and water, clothing, repair, personal repair, like personal gear and item wear outs and those sorts of things. All of that is money sinks. So those money sinks will make it so that it's very difficult for somebody who is just pulling out the money and just being like, fuck you, I'm paying for this, to actually get any advantage out of it. It will require so much more coordination and effort. The logistics alone and the number of people to support those big, heavy ships, which have a lot of oomph, would require as much work, or if not more work, than just the money it would cost to pay some of those. Like in terms of the hours you'd have to put into it compared to the hours it would take you to earn that money, unless you're some Daddy Warbucks billionaire. All right, let me go back and look at some of these, because I was my brain farted and that kind of stuff. Big question is, will they sell cheaper in game than they do in the website and sell UEC cash from the website? They will sell cheaper in game, they already have, but they're also not going to be a fixed price. The entire point of the ships is the ships will fluctuate in price depending on where you're going. So, and depending on the constituent components that make up the ship. So if lithium becomes super valuable and lithium makes up so much of the components or parts of a ship, then the ship prices will go up because lithium is more expensive. So as lithium becomes more expensive, so will the cost of the ships for building in general. Plus the cost of shipping any of those things to where it needs to go. CIG does want to simulate the economy as much as possible. So there will be no fixed amount of money that ships will cost. They will cost what they cost in game. So if you buy a ship in the ass end of nowhere, it's going to be a lot more fucking expensive than if you buy it directly off the factory floor. And they'll fluctuate. So, based off of CIG's own, internal dials and switches. So if CIG goes, hey, this is way too cheap, they can change some of the prices and cause like an increase in steel or increase in copper or whatever. Big roll to at least see some Spitfire in the same frame, but using modern components. It's almost like they want World War II in space. Yes, they do. Notice that a tractor beam on Spirit as size 3. Seems like the hand tractor beam is size 1 and rifle is size 2. Probably the hand tractor beam and rifle are size pistol and size rifle. But there are different sizes, because I believe the front tractor beam on the nose of the 315 is either a size 2 or a size 3. I think it's a size 2. And there is a size 0 tractor beam, or size 1 and size 0 tractor beams for other things as well. So they work like weapons. They've even said that there's going to be a limit to how much they can hold. So like the hand tractor beams are very, very small in terms of how much weight they can carry. The rifle one can hold a little bit more, like the more the two-handed one. And then you'll have tractor beams on ships and probably vehicles, which will be able to handle much higher cargoes. Question: do you think it's not having a second exit on the Spirit is a big deal? There's no second exit on the MSR. And unfortunately, the Spirit's now just an MSR like competitor. And as the info runners will tell you, it means it's probably less valuable than it used to be before, because it's no longer a freelancer Cutlass competitor. It's just now another large ship, which is kind of sad. Yeah, they didn't think that having a second entrance in the, was a big deal. I'm sorry. Thank you, Radar. Yeah. I thought they changed SRV to a size 5. Maybe. I don't know the whole sizing stuff, though. Personal hangar, yeah, there's also that. Taxes will be due on job payouts unless you're going to illegal areas where you won't have any taxes, but you are risking higher risk, higher reward sort of thing. Docking fees? No, no, I don't have that much regular time. That's my point. Like, CIG is not going to try to bankrupt you with all of these different money sinks. What they are trying to do is prevent you from having a fucking huge ass fleet that's stretched across 17 different systems, and trying to pull those out at a moment's notice. They want that to be painful. They want you to pull out ships that you need when you need them, not whenever you feel the fuck like it. Camp the factory line. Drake ships will be expensive because they have to replace so many ships. Drake ships aren't expensive because they're made up of recycled Drake ships. There'll be a village where I can buy things on the black market, I guess. Yep, 100%. There'll be places you can go buy stuff on the black market. Do you think lifetime insurance will actually mean lifetime insurance, or do you think it'll pay delivery fees regardless? There will always be other fees involved. They've even said that. It only covers the basic insurance, all that does. So if you want to get things sped up, you will have to pay those speed ups, all those sorts of things. So lifetime insurance is good because it prevents you from having to spend money on ships you're not using. That's just sitting in a hangar. But if you're actually using it, lifetime insurance won't matter as much. It only matters if you have a huge fleet. But they've been saying that from the beginning. Fire hazards everywhere, Crusader. This is the 30th century. OSHA doesn't exist anymore. The MSR will likely come to its own when data running comes in. Yeah, it's a little too big for smuggling right now. As you said, it still fits the same pad, so it's still a Lancer and Cuddy black competitor. Oh, he changed his mind then, because I remember seeing his post on it where it was a 46 to 48 compared to the 30s. So there'll definitely be tolls, especially going through certain jump points. I'm imagining you'll have to pay a toll, or landing, you'll have to pay a toll. Want a new Imperator? Raise gas or hydrogen prices. Yeah. How long till Anvil Capital ship? How long till they're selling it, or how long till they build it? Because they could sell it anytime soon, possibly even at IAE for though based off of the leaks, probably not. But in terms of building it, years, 5 years away. No time soon. Don't ask where Hurston gets the meat for his sandwiches. OSHA, more like oh shit. Do you think they'll track players who cannibalize their own ships when salvage comes out? Yeah, because they can do that. Can the MSR tunnels be accessed from the cargo bay? Yes, they can. You just have to know the right buttons to push. The BMM will be in the black market and auction house. Yeah, it kind of will. Basic insurance gets you stock version. Tiered insurance gets you back various components, maybe? Yes. So if you buy more advanced, you will get back the advanced components you already put into it and replaced it with. And you even have cargo insurance, where if you're doing a cargo run and your cargo gets destroyed, they'll pay you to get that cargo back. More about insurance. We will need to wait for the shop to build the actual industry in game to be delivered. Yes. But that's all simulated in the back end. So the times for returning will be based off of AI's ability to purchase or find one of those ships in storage and then send it to you. So the further you are away from civilized space, the longer it's going to take for that ship to get to you. The more common the ship is, like a Cutlass, a Freelancer, an Aurora, a Mustang, the faster it will be able to be found, because there's probably dozens, hundreds, thousands of them in storage somewhere, on a lot somewhere, that they can easily pick up and send to you. That's all the purpose of Quanta. And I know that sounds crazy and nuts, but they already have a lot of that technology built into the game in terms of the back-end stuff. It's just a matter of increasing up the, connecting all of the commodities together to an actual, simulation, and letting the simulation run for Star Citizen. But they need things like server meshing, PES, both to be in the first place, so that they can add the new AI system into the game. Insurance for all days of Prime in Star Citizen. It is, yeah. You got a file about metrics of the pads. Apparently the pad is 1.5 meters larger than the Spirit series. Okay. Pay the buyer gangs a toll to move through their territory. Yeah, that's that stuff. Parachute and coordinate system for finding locations, the most urged things to build them now, I think. Given CIG says LTI doesn't matter, do you think they will provide a fleet LTI as concierge reward? I think it's a good idea, but maybe not as concierge reward, but maybe as a subscriber bonus would be the way I would do it, to try to encourage people to subscribe, which is like, people are going to make what they want to about LTI all they want. So let's just fucking sell, like add it as part of the subscriber deal. How long till I can plant my flag and plant and say they're declaring my ownership? A while, probably a good 2 years. They have to get server meshing and the basics of PES and server meshing in. And even under CIG's ambitious deadlines, PES is not coming until the end of this year, and server meshing isn't coming out until at the earliest, March next year. And that is likely ambitious and overly optimistic. LTI is good if you can take a break to play another game, come back and forget about your expired insurance, not notice you re-up the prompts and crash your ship and then spare some. Exactly. The problem is that insurance and LTI doesn't matter because it's not going to be implemented in the game for 3 years. So I wonder if we could ever have chip shortages. We probably could. It's crazy and nuts. After killing thousands of hammerheads, I wonder the same thing. Yeah, you could definitely, in theory, once they've implemented Quanta more often, you could have a situation where you could exhaust the sheer numbers of ships that the local security forces have. In theory. Then my flag should probably say PES is real. I have such a question. I've been thinking about the Kurthok recently, and I was thinking, what if they're an offshoot of the Xi'an who became cyborgs on a quest for immortality and thus causing a rift in the Xi'an society? It's an idea. The problem is that Kurthok is not a root of the Xi'an language. It has no root in the Xi'an language. It's a completely not at all what that's what they call themselves. And based off of what I've talked with Jail about it, he said likely the Kurthak probably don't say call Kurthak. They're probably more like Kurthak. They probably speak a little more like that. So the likelihood is they are not related to the Xi'an in any way, shape, or form. Every ship is super unique. They all have their own ID and owner, so the police will stop people flying stolen ships. Exactly. And you can actually see the ID numbers of your ship on your ship. All of your whole ID numbers are printed on your ships. You have a VIN ID on your ships right now, and they're all unique. I'd sub instantly? Yeah. So parking in a Fusion compact car sports. Awesome. In Jupiter, incident game ships, small satellite drops. Okay. Any chance the Krthok are cyborgs? It's not impossible. The Krthok could be cyborgs. They could be robotic. I just want my Kraken so bad everyone wants it. I just found the 300 customer customizer page in the store. How long has that been there? Is this really a thing? Any idea if this thing will be on other ships? It is a thing. It's been there for years. Likely not. Because it was built as an experiment to see how they could sell customized ships from the get-go from the website. And they haven't touched it since. Usually that means CIG has abandoned it and just hasn't bothered removing it. So they'll get back to it eventually, sometime before the heat death of the universe. They've got other things they got to worry about, like PES and server meshing, and then, guild or organization stuff. If CIG had an in-game reference about you, what would you want it to be? Nothing too specific. It would be nothing too specific, and maybe an offhand mention, like my name as a reference source for like a book, like in Paul Shelley's Galactic Historian, the Astro Historian, or whatever, or in Paul Shelley's book, The Tenements of Civilization, or whatever. He says this, and that's it. Something that's subtle, that was like, it's like a reference, it's like a nod, but not like a big one. But I don't think they will. CIG's not like that. So, and I'm cool with that. I'd rather be myself in-game and have an in-game reputation, and not have CIG, like, retroactively put me in. I want to put my name in the game through lore, through my actions, that forces CIG to do it, not because they're like, this guy's cool, but now they're like, God damn it, this guy fucked something up. In fact, the mention of like, will ships eventually run out? That's my theory. With Quanta in game, eventually there will be a preset limit for how many killbots are in fact inside Hurston in terms of like security. Checkmate. When all the dominoes in a row, checkmate. I can see a roaming pub in the lore, that kind of stuff. Speaking of org stuff, any news on that? Nothing. They are very much into some other stuff. Okay, I'll take back. If CIG was to do anything, I would love for them to take my idea of the Redeemer lore, the version 1 versus version 2, and some of the backstory that I put in there. Take that, work it, and make that the actual lore. If my fanon, they took my fanon for the Redeemer and made that canon, or in some way, shape, or form, I'd be cool with that. What sort of LFG support are they planning? Is there a crew finder system they're planning or would help other players? They're called the Trade and Development Division. The TDD. Tango Delta Delta. You'll see them all over landing zones. Those are places where you're going to be able to find missions, transport missions, and crew. It's just like a giant guild hall for traders. The Rise of Ulu. But yeah, so the idea is, because Quanta will have a preset limit, you will eventually be able to kill all of the Hurston security officers, and there will be no more. So if players can do that, just wipe out all of the Hurston guards, eventually we will be the only ones left. Now that's an operation pitch we're going to go for. And I mean, I already have the name. It's the United Workers Union of Hurston. Fuck the Vandal, let's mess up the Hurstons. The idea is, how long can we hold the city before CIG has to respond with something? Because in theory, when they have things like the green zones, they replace armistice zones with green zones where you get charged, or assaulted if you have a gun in those zones. versus and the ability to exhaust the number of guards in something like Lorville. Once they have both of those, we could, in theory, land some forces outside the city gates, the city walls of Lorville, and assault the city walls like fucking medieval style, like, but with tanks and vehicles. Bum rush the gates, overwhelm the guards, hop onto the trams, take the trams to the central cities, and just start going to town. Yeah, the United Workers Union of Hurston, aka OO. Oh, they definitely have good ground-to-space defenses. They probably are a little weaker on the ground-to-ground defenses. And besides, it's not like we aren't up for a challenge to assault a heavily armed wall that's probably bristling with more guns than legally, than physically possible. Because the idea of assaulting walls, which have built-in ground and anti-air defenses built into them, having to blow those up simultaneously in a combined infantry, mechanized and with air support to even get to the walls, burst through the gates, and start moving our way into the city is kind of badass. It's not something that would be easy, nor would it be necessarily cheap, but it would be cool, and it would be a fucking hell of a way to put your name in the lore. Yeah, and you could also do that. If it's in that by then, you could also pay people or have people infiltrate, smuggle in weapons and then infiltrate the area and kill the defenses if we can before we assault, so that it's easier to attack. Anyways, this is an idea I've had for several years now. And I'm looking forward to implementing it when that finally comes into the game when I'm 90. I believe Ionic Gecko has said that we will leave Constantine Hurston to him. You've just made all men Hurston nervous. He's always been nervous since I've mentioned this. Disguise someone as a Hurston guard, which will work because, as we know from the last month's monthly report, they already have that working in a prototype phase where guards will not, or other hostiles will not recognize you as a hostile if you walk around in their armor or in their clothing, unless you get too close. Will landing zones have resource management? Could shut down power? In theory. But it really depends on how detailed CIG wants to go with it. I imagine CIG is going to make some shortcuts because they don't want players to be able to just go nuts, and they don't necessarily want to put so much emphasis on micro aspects of the game unless they're going to use that as part of gameplay. So like power systems to defenses, maybe, but it'll probably be simplistic and like a hallway defense. So being able to disable like exterior defenses, possibly, but it would have to be in a very specific location we'd have to get to in the first place. You're so mean, Paul. Persons are philanthropists. They just want to educate. They want to educate people on who their betters are. Check your question. I didn't see your question earlier. Vulture plus Caterpillar. A question? What? Question: do you think CIG will increase the BMM price at IAE this year? Possibly. Question: I've seen a render of the Vulture docking with the front of a Caterpillar. How likely do you see that being a thing? That was a fan creation, and I don't think it will. Perhaps have a docking system between the two. Probably not. I think it's much more likely that we'll have to wait until the Caterpillar has its modules to figure out if that will happen or not. in theory, going back to the landing zone, CIG has said that all of the elements of the game will run off the same management system. So from outposts to ships to player suits will all have to use power and energy, that kind of thing. So, didn't the Vulture get have a ramp? Like, couldn't they have passed boxes over the load? They probably could, yeah. But I don't think you could dock them together. Cat mods are CIG's biggest fucking regret? No, Velocity. CIG's biggest fucking regret is the goddamn Endeavor. All hail. Cult of the Endeavor. What is the Drake Cutter? So that's a good question. A lot of people have said, well, the Cutter was a snub ship that was supposed to go onto the Aegis Reclaimer. I don't think this is the Cutter in that way. I think because Drake uses naval terminology, I believe it is a snub ship that is for Drake ships, like a ferry or a shuttle, maybe capable of moving a couple of boxes here and there, or holding some boxes, but being able to fit in maybe a Corsair's hangar, or fit in the back of a cuddy, or like a caterpillar, fit inside a caterpillar. I think it's probably Drake's answer to the Merlin. Would be my guess. Yeah, the MPUV, like a hybrid between an MPUV and a Merlin, and having it fit into the cargo container back of a Corsair makes a lot of fucking sense. Yeah, or like a Pisces. Yeah, and they're putting it in. Because a cutter is usually, in naval terminology, especially like Age of Sail terminology, a cutter is like a small personal yacht sort of thing, usually used for, it's like bigger than a rowboat, but smaller than I don't even know what it's called. It's just usually a smaller vessel that's used for like ship to ground or ship to shore transport. And look it up real quickly. So like a Coast Guard cutter, for instance. You probably heard that term before. So I looked it up, just quick Google. Britannica says, cutter, small, speedy sail vessel similar to a sloop that has a single mast rigged fore and aft, carrying a mainsail and at least 2 head sails. Its traditional hull design, deep and narrow, features a ranking transom stem, and a vertical stem, and a long bowsprit. The type of watercraft, the term is for several meanings. It can apply to a rig of a sailing vessel, to a governmental enforcement agency vessel, to a type of ship which boat can be used. So, small guy, very small. Like in traditional sailing, it's only like one or two persons. So it could be anywhere between like a Pisces, but for Drake, all the way up to like a Drake starter ship. 1 or 2 people starter ship. I didn't buy the Odyssey, no. Coast Guard still has cutters, yep. And they even have ships that are classified as cutters, but they're not. A Clipper is another way to put it, yeah. But a Clipper is not the same, doesn't have the same Drake ring to it as the cutter. Drake Space Kayak. Yeah. Maybe a Drake Heavy Fighter? Probably not. My guess is it would be some sort of cargo vessel. Or like a multi-use, like utility ship of some kind. I'd love for it to be a Drake starter competitor to the Mustang and the Aurora and the Reliant and that kind of level, and the 100. If it's Drake's version of that, be bingo. Drake doesn't make military ships, really. In fact, someone said that I was wrong, that Drake does make ships for the military, because they make like a bunch of Reds for the UAE government. Like the answer to that is they don't, because it's inconsistent. Because CIG's own lore has said, or Star Citizen's own lore has Like the reason why Drake has Drake Defense Con is because instead of because they're not invited to the IAE because they don't have ships that are used by the UAE Navy. So it makes no sense that the UAE Navy has Cutlass Reds, because otherwise they'd just be part of the fucking Invictus celebration. So I think that's been retconned, if anything. Invictus, yeah, thank you. I could correct myself halfway through. Wonder what the Drake Rapier will do. That's probably if there's a Rapier, there would be a combat ship, of course, like a small fighter, like a light fighter. Cutter could be a Drake racing ship? Could be. I don't think so, though. My guessing is it's more of anywhere between a shuttle and a starter ship. Could the Drake Cutter be a salvage ship and cutting up old broken ships? It could, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have a miniature salvage ship when you already have the intro ship that is the Vulture. That would be doubling up on a profession that CIG just tends to not do. We don't have like a single-seater like micro version of the Prospector. Because the Prospector is the starter ship for that profession. And I think they've even said the Vulture is the same way. So. The Navy would definitely have pilots. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that lore for the Red was made before the Apollo came out. You know what they did? Making an ambulance for federal civs doesn't make them a military contractor. I think it was the lore says that they sold it to the Navy. But that's probably back when the Red was first sold, which is, the lore has changed a lot. One of the things that people need to understand is, and I've mentioned this multiple times, there is two times. There's 2015 CIG, or there's Star Citizen pre-2015 and Star Citizen post-2015. Pre-2015 Star Citizen has a lot of lore that has to change, and has already changed, simply because the game that they were making completely changed with planetary landing. So post 2015, you have more people who are writers, so you have a writing team that is expanding, and that writing team has a lot more to do with in-game realities. So the realities of the game that start to change, they have to start making big changes. For instance, regeneration. Regeneration was a huge retcon that they had to do in a way, not really. They had to slot it in because it wasn't part of the original concept, so. The options for a large mining ship company sucked. I wanted an alien option. Yeah, I wanted Grey Cat. When you write the lore, there are two magic words, retcon. Exactly. But CIG, especially the narrative team, is very hesitant to use retcons. That's why they paint in such broad strokes. But when something as fundamental as planetary landing comes into the game, that means that there are even the broadest of strokes are going to have to change. Even saying that, because you said that this planet is a lifeless hunk of rock because no one would ever land there because you don't have planetary landing in the game. Now suddenly every planet is achievable, or at least like flyable, if not landable. Now having half the universe populated with dead rocks doesn't make a lot of sense. Without exploration gameplay, what's the Corsair most useful for? I don't have my pirate hat anymore, so I'll go to the next best thing. Freeing the fuck out of other people's cargo. I'm exploring the inside of your cargo bay. It's a pirate ship. It's an exploration ship. Just like the Cutlass is a search and rescue ship. Hell yeah, brother. Mirth, verse, fuck yeah. This hat makes more sense, to be honest. Bringing freedom to the one cargo bay at a time. Deep space liberation missions. Weird question. Outside the UE Navy, where's the rest of the UE? Haven't seen much of the UE mailman mission. just because the Postal Service just isn't in the game yet. There is the Postal Service. There's the UAE Postal Service. There's the UAE Army, the UAE Marines. There's the UAE. There's the ISC, which is Interstellar Cartography, which is owned by, I believe, the UAE. A lot of the aspects of UAE is actually privately owned. So there's a large sections of the UAE which have organizations which the government gives to these private contractors who then do things. Like I think the Trade and Development Division is not owned by the UAE, but it is regulated by the UAE because it's a monopoly. So like TDD is a organization that exists throughout the empire as a means to regulate trade, but it's not like a federal institution. So the answer is just they have to wait until they get more of the AI stuff in game to make them work. There's a mail service. There is. There's even a transportation, a UAE transportation office. The United Empire of Earth Transportation Service, which is you could take a test to get a driver's license before the cyclone came out. You could get a little plaque saying you passed the driver's exam, so you could drive your cyclone. UAE is evil. Destroy the Tavarian homeland. I like to call. So if you don't know, myself, Algrid, and Jail, who are the main three folks for the Lore Citizen podcast, we managed to sit down and talk with Dave Haddock, who's the lead writer and the head of narrative design team for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. And talk with him about his process and a lot of other aspects. We had like an hour and a half that we talked with him. It was a good time. We learned a lot and talked a lot about stuff. And one of the things that came away from Dave Haddock when he was talking was that the purpose of it, like Chris Robertson initially said, they did not want to have a black and white universe. They wanted to have something akin to Star Wars in terms of like the big space adventure feel, but they didn't want the universe to be good and evil. They wanted it to be shades of gray. So the way I like to put the kind of narrative flow that I pick up from Star Citizen is that Star Citizen is grim punk. It has aspects of grimdark storytelling where you have a universe that is depressing and no one is good. No one is evil, necessarily outright evil, but no one is good. But it also has heavy influences from cyberpunk kind of discussions. You've got mega corporations which control large swaths of the government. Lots of like all of the pirates organizations and like criminal organizations. Most of them aren't really pirates or criminals. They're more like rebels. They actively hate the institutions of the UAE and the corporations, because the origins of most of these organizations are actually rebel groups that tried to destroy the UNE, the very first human unified government, and failed during the unification wars. And the survivors basically split. They fled after they lost and became the first pirate organizations, and many of these have kind of evolved from there. So, it's one of the reasons why Nyx exists. So, and Pyro. But, so as a result, the kind of narrative of Star Citizen is no one is good. No one is necessarily evil. There's always people who are trying to do the right thing, but there's always people there who are trying to fuck everything up. Give Claymore sword CIG. I want to go William Wallace and hold a broadsword in the air for a change. I am a big fan of melee weapons in the game because I think melee weapons would do very well in the tight controlled spaces of ships. And if you watch the monthly reports, CIG is definitely making more varieties of melee weapons, and they have ballistic shields. Carryable ballistic shields are in the game. They're being developed for Squadron, and if they're being developed for Squadron, they're likely going to make it over to Star Citizen. That's super interesting. Add way more depth and immersion to the atmosphere of the game. That's true world building. That's the kind of the idea, yeah. What's the name of the border services in Star Citizen? Do they have any Navy or Army? Planet border services? What do you mean by that? Like the ones who control planets? They're the Army. The UE Army is the one who controls and maintains planets. The Navy deals with patrols, and they may deal with like space issues. The Marines are a separate. They're not attached to the Navy. They're a separate military force, but they function also as the grunts of the Navy. So there'll be Marines who are attached to Navy ships, but they actually have their own ships and they have their own fleets that they use as well. But those are more like elite fleets. I'll be using for my Corsair for exploration, maybe. Question. Are the moons going to get a large spaceports when they add to Genesis Starliner? Moons, no, but likely the space stations will probably get a commercial port. They kind of already have one with docking bays. They'll probably add more commercial aspects to those docking ports as well. Not moons. You're likely only going to see landing zones on planets. That like the big landing zones will have those commercial, like land here, disgorge your people, that kind of thing. Question, do you think CIG will wait until they can release all the Spirit variants at the same time, or could they come piecemeal so they don't have to wait for all the gameplay loops like taxi missions to be online? It really depends on what status they're in. I think CIG wants to release all the Spirits when they can at the same time, but they may break it up. Depends on what's available and when. Space Sword. All right, Star Citizen novel now, and try to do Star Citizen crime sci-fi movie series with streamers for the community. Oh, nice, thank you. Hell yeah, full warfare. Full warframe. Yes. Give me an axe so I can axe people in the ships. That's what I want. The slow blade penetrates the shield. Yeah. Hey, Paul, do you notice their comment about Crusader going in a new direction at the end of the Q&A? Thoughts? All right. This is not meant as a ding on the narrative team. It's not meant as an attack on the narrative team. However, narrative team, if you are listening, justify this. Don't just say this, justify it. Because this is like the Red Cross decided that they are going to start buying AK-47s to ship to Ukraine. Like, what the fuck? Why is this vaguely humanitarian company suddenly building bombers en masse? Like, there needs to be a justification. There needs to be some sort of lore discussion about this change, because if anything, people would get pissed about it. You know, the people would complain about this direction, that these things have changed. Maybe former Crusader employees get disgruntled and going like, this is bullshit. They used to be about the people, and now they're just building military warships. You know, yeah, we built military transports, but it was always transports. It was never like bombers and fighters. Shit's changed, yo. Like, that would make sense in the lore for them to just decide that Crusaders getting teeth, because that makes sense. But it does not mesh with the thing that even Dave Haddock himself said, that Crusader, he always saw Crusader as a well-meaning company that was not prepared to run a planet. But they were more well-meaning than the other companies of the Stanton system. That's not the case anymore. And if that's not the case anymore, that's fine. Just justify it in the lore, which they haven't done, which is one of the reasons why myself and Algrid are not okay with the current direction of Crusader's ships, because it feels much more like the sales team decided that Crusader ships sell well because people like Crusader ships. So any kind of new idea, can we make it into a Crusader ship? Sure, let's move it. And may even be the ship design team being like, hey, we want to make Crusader ships, we want to make more combat ships because they're easier to do. Let's do that, which is fine, but justify it in the lore. So lightsabers? Yeah, I don't think so. Star Citizen's storyline is very good for doing movies. It is good, a lot of that kind of stuff. Give me a Breacher Hammer 2. Rock and Stone. Fortunately, people either want to be thugs or bitches. Nobody wants to be good, like playing good. Like playing Warhammer 40k, I prefer good. Yeah, I mean, you can play good. There's nothing wrong with good. Like, I don't think Star Citizen Universe is inherently evil or inherently good. It's just the shades of gray means you can be more on the good side. It's just you're never going to be 100% good for everyone. UE Marines are like beyond scary. to give you kind of a gist of how the UE Marines work, you don't sign up for the Marines. They choose you during training. They'll pull out good candidates from the Navy and from the Army training. And then once they've taken those candidates, they throw them into literal frozen hell. A planet that may be terraformed, but is like microtech on acid. It is incredibly difficult. They give them barely any supplies, and they're like, cool, we're training here now. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fatality rate with Marine training, because it's that harsh. And if you survive, you get let into the main Marine military base, which is inside that planet. It's an inside, like it's built like a base that's built under the planet's surface, which we don't know what exists there because it's top secret. And there's a Bengal carrier group that sits in that orbit. And if you even get near that planet, they just fucking shoot you. They don't hail you. They don't warn you. They just kill you. Like, it's that sort of insane sort of levels of, like, don't fuck with the Marines. Pretty sure Chris will make us hard decisions in Squadron 42 like Mass Effect. Oh, yeah, he definitely will. I know the decisions, because I'm an idiot, but I'm not going to talk about it. I'll just say, yes, there are decisions you make. CHPs went off and on working on NPC transports anyways. Yes, they've definitely been close enough that they thought they could get it done. So, Marines drop from orbit directly into the battlefield on nails. 90 seconds, yeah. Did we get raided? Taurus CJ43, you're clear for receiving, yeah. Aggressive humanitarianism, that's what I call it. So the Ares Starfare, yeah, that's another thing we're talking about as well. Someone told me that if you jump over the M50 railing in Lorville, you can see commercial landing zones below. You kind of see them, they're not fully modeled out there, but you can. Well, if you ever played Battletech Tabletop, if you had melee weapons when you boarded other starships, you don't cripple or accidentally destroy the ship you're trying to capture. That's another good point. Watching the game now, C2, A2, the A2, the M2, yeah. Well, those are built after, when the M2 was built already, but it was still a transport mission. It's still a transport ship. It's not really a drop ship or a gun ship. But the A2 specifically is much more militarized. So you have the A2, which is the first real combat ship, but even then it's kind of a variant, and it's not officially a military variant. I think it's a civilian variant that has military applications, because the M2 is the military variant. And then so like the military uses it, but it wasn't built originally for the military. It was built for civilian market. And then after that, they have the Starfighter and now the Spirit series as well. Making combat ships to fight off the Nine Tails. Yeah, that's true. But they need to have a reason for it. Just saying they're making combat ships to fight off the Nine Tails is nice, but there's no lore saying that. There's no explanation for that. There's no, like, written account. That's like saying, fucking, I'm the King of England. I'm the King of England. I have no proof. There's no records or anything, but I'm just saying it. That's all it is. It's like, yes, you might be able to think that's the case, but just because you think it's the case doesn't mean it's the case. Incendiary humanitarianism. Those hippies going to defend the peace in Patchouli? Or use ships that already exist that are combat ships? Rock and stone in the heart, yes. I think the current direction is more fight stuff because Squadron 42. I agree, but a lot of these ships are built after Squadron 42 starts. So, like, the Ares Starfighter was built in 2949, and the Spirit's built in 2950. So, like, they're after the Squadron 42's date when they're supposed to be in the game. So, or we're supposed to be playing in terms of timeline. So, none of that stuff is going to be in Squadron. Yin Yang. Maybe Ninetales stalked the Crusader board of directors. Who knows? And it could also be a thing that work isn't good, but it also could be that the work isn't good. But I think having Pyro be on a badass fire pit where you have to survive would be much very cooler than a version of Stanton. Like, I don't know what you're saying, Jeremiah, but it's not another version of Stanton. It is definitely going to be a different place. And I think we've already had this conversation. It's not just Stanton 2.0. It is literally a new environment. The solar flares will still exist. They'll still have other hazards involved in it. We don't know to what degree the planets are habitable on Pyro. They may have an atmosphere, but having an atmosphere doesn't mean shit. It just means that they can keep in the atmosphere because maybe the electromagnetic shields that kind of protect Earth, or even now because of the spinning of our core, electromagnetic. I forgot the name of the damn stuff. Field, just the field that's created that protects us from the sun. All those planets could have these spinning cores and have those thick abilities. So. See you in 6 months. Don't die. I think pirating Hurston ships makes you the good guy. Hey, it could. Yes, and then they train them in the ways of serving the God Emperor of the UEE. I mean, there is some not so subtle references to Warhammer 40k Space Marines. It is said that the Marines, the UEE Marines, know no fear, that they are literally fearless, and they even use the word "no." They know no fear in some of the descriptions. It's like I see what you're doing. There's a mortality rate with training today. Okay, I didn't know that. I imagine it's lower, though. The UE Marines get assigned to giant crayons during boot camp. Like Area 51 in 2020, yeah. There are over 100 systems. Why cave? I mean, I don't be surprised when they have to rebuild the entire system 10 years from now. Jeremiah, I think you're kind of coming back on these stuff, but you're wrong, my dude. It's not that at all. It's that they want to make the planets more interesting because otherwise they'd be lifeless rocks. Pyro is still Pyro at its core. Kind of like Dune, Sedekar, and the Fremen training. Yeah. What's their justification for giving civilians MOABs? Because? Technically giving citizens MOABs. Yeah, I think it's civilians too. Didn't the UE tell Crusader to handle the situation? They have. Most of them. Hey, Shempasta. You've been here before. You want to control a whole planet, you must be able to defend it. And if you are a shipbuilder, why not use what you have after for military use? Again, these are all logical arguments that is not made in lore at all. None of these things are made in lore. So it's just fan canon at that point. Will the space cat species from Freelancer come in Star Citizen? No. Still going strong, guy? It's only been 2 hours. Do they spit acid? I don't know. Wait, there's space cats? I think he means in Wing Commander and Privateer. I always love to see Jax come back. There's 100 systems doesn't mean every system has the exact same amount of planets. It's important to remember that because there's 100 systems doesn't mean it's going to take them 5 years to make every system. Every system is going to be made, but they didn't, like Pyro, for instance, is almost entirely done and was done in like a year. We don't know how long precisely they've worked on it, but we do know that they have most of Pyro done, that they said that they did most of Pyro pretty quickly, and that they have the ability to produce planets and moons in about a month. Add on top of that the goal of planets, like the planetary and system creation, is eventually going to be handed off to Montreal. And we know how fast Montreal works. And the reason why Montreal works fast is because they have been given the tools developed over the last several years to build the stuff they need to do. And as a result, they're taking those tools and they're building them pretty quickly. And the more tools they develop, the faster they get. We've seen that with every single thing, from ship production to planets and other things like that. So we'll eventually get to that point. And they're already developing tools for more procedural placements of things like points of interest, landing zones, all sorts of things. And it's also important to remember that just because there's 100 systems, that doesn't mean they're all Stantons. There's, for instance, Min. Min has no sun. It is a planet, it is a gas giant and some moons. And that's it. There is the Tamsa system, which is just a black hole with a gas giant and some moons. There is the one that I've been going on a lot about recently, which is the Castra system, which only has 2 planets, and that's it. It's got a habitable landable zone that has 1 landing zone, but it's mostly unpopulated. It has a space station that orbits it, which is a pretty big military station. And then they have like a smaller planet that's closer to the sun that is used for target practice. So it makes sense for that to be more of a lifeless hunk of rock than anything. And there we go. A lot of that stuff can be done. They already have technology for it. Nyx is mostly going to be barren. They've already been working on Nyx lore and updating stuff, and they haven't really updated much of that. I wouldn't expect many, if any, of the Nyx planets to be habitable. You may have some atmosphere, but you may not have breathable atmosphere, because it doesn't fit in with the lore that they already have, nor would it fit in terms of the themes, because it's supposed to be out of the way, and there's lots of other aspects to it. The reason why, quite honestly, why Pyro got much more of a glow up in terms of the ships, like planets that are accessible, is pretty simple. It's the second system they've been making for the game. It needs to be kind of cool. It'd be kind of a waste. Hey, thank you, Deepa, for that 1999.
Hey, a tip.
Deepa super shotted $19.99.
There's this one that's got 1 sun and asteroid fields. I can't remember which one that is, but yes, there's that. So there's a lot of the systems are pretty empty. And there's the famous system, which is actually one of the first systems we discovered. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But it's right next to Banshee, which is basically got... They fucked up. It's got hyperclay storms all over it. It's where they tested the Eclipse. But it's basically just a shitty... It's like a much shittier version of Australia, of the Australian outback. It's like a worse Australian outback. And that's it. Now, may they change some things around yet? Probably, but a lot of that stuff is already kind of cemented. It's the only black hole that we've discovered so far, yes. That we in a system. I think it's funny because I've been here since 2012. I don't have any doubt the game's going to be cool. I'm just making a point. No defense necessary. I'm trying to educate you there, Jeremiah. It's not a defense. It's more of an education. Because I see a lot of people saying the same thing. Oh, it's going to take 300, 400 years for to get these done. It's like, yeah, it could. But most likely it's not if you've been following the development of how the game's been working so far. That's just it. It's okay to be skeptical, but at the same time, at least be informed. Question: is there an in-lore reason why we can't go to other systems, like jump points are disabled or something like that? Yeah, jump points collapse. Jump points collapse all the time. Well, we have at least 2 or 3 reports of jump points collapsing. There's one big famous one, which is why Corsair exists. I can't remember the name of the system, but someone in chat's going to remind me. There was an entire system that was being terraformed, and there was some hullabaloo about what was going on. So the company who was in charge of the terraforming invited the head of the UAE terraformation to come visit. They went through the jump point to go to the system, and the jump point collapsed. And it was the only jump point to that system. So there was a colony of people with an unterraformed planet that still relied on resources coming from outside the system. They weren't self-sufficient, trapped on the wrong side of a jump point. Oh yeah, Australia's pretty great, thanks. Think about the worst, most desolate part of the outback, and then like ratchet it up a couple of notches. That's what I'm saying. Is the hyperclay storms on that planet are nuts. Well, if you're educated, then you should know all these things already, Jeremiah. Because it sounds like you're either willfully ignorant or just chose not to pay attention to things and make up your own reasons for it. Which star system will you be using as home base, and why is it Magnus? Because I'm a Magnus boy at heart. That's my home. At least in lore, at least in my character's canon, that's my character's home base because it's just fucking cool. That place is fucking bent over left, right, and center in terms of it gotten the raw end of every deal, and it's just a really cool place to go. All right, Jeremiah. I'm not interested in having a circular conversation with you, buddy. You can come back later if you like. If you don't want to, that's fine. Have a good day. I love the game, but I don't believe the second they're going to have 100 systems in 8 years. They probably won't. They've said that they want to try to get beta. They want to try to get 5 to 10 systems with beta. We had the pyro crab, but now we need the pyro emu. No, we don't want a pyro emu because they'd be from Lear. I've joked for a long time that Lear is Space Australia. Is there a binary star system? Yes, there is. It's called Baker. Baker has got a binary star. I believe there's maybe 2 or 3 binary star systems, but that's the one that stands out in my mind right now. Space emus? Are they that Tavaran? Ouch. Hey, Tavaran aren't too far away. They do have a jump point to the Lear system. Do you think the jump points will come in with Pyro? Yeah, definitely. They have to. Because that's how we're going to get to Pyros, to the jump points. Is there any lore on the Titan suits? No lore yet. We just know that they're in Squadron. I think the most I know about them is that they were built to fight the Vanduul, though they may have earlier roots than that, but you know, that's the main purpose of them now, is to fight the Vanduul. Binary is a system with 2 stars? Yes, 2 stars. What do you think will take to have a cargo loading to be fun and rewarding activity rather than tedious? Nothing. You're not going to make every part of the game fun. And this may sound controversial. It may not be everyone's bag, but games don't have to be fun 100% of the time. No sim is a fun 100% of the time. As long as it's engaging and asking for you to pay attention, maybe problem solve or puzzling a little bit, that is important. So an easy way of making something engaging is to have weight loads. So we know that CIG has already had that technology in and out of the game for a while of changing the weight loads of the ship, which will affect its aerodynamics, which was created for the hope of when you add cargo to the ship, then it increases the weight, which makes it harder to take off from planetary bodies and so on and so forth. So, having loading because of weight and loading in terms of loading and unloading, like what are you going to take out first, is important. And that aspect of the game can be engaging and that kind of stuff. Or you can just throw everything in a big pile and make it work, sort of thing. My guess is it's going to be more of a plan out, like this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And then you'll have some sort of like kind of Tetris-like where you're moving stuff like, okay, this goes here first. You plan it out and then you move things to like holographic AR markers where you can put them down. Yeah, think kind of like 3D Tetris sort of thing. Are you doing any lore on Star Atlas if it becomes a bigger game? Possibly, possibly not. Right now I don't really have any interest in Star Atlas because I don't even know what the fuck it is, but is Min a rogue planet? I think so. There's no star, so. Fun and rewarding is versus tedious is up to the person. Not everyone's going to enjoy the same stuff. There is such thing as the power wash simulator. But people enjoy it. One of my guilty pleasures is RimWorld, which is definitely not fun in the traditional sense, because it's a lot of micromanaging, but I can see it. Yeah, Star Atlas is the NFT game. Just lost 2 of my 3 guys in RimWorld by accident. It was no fun. Well, it was, but then not. But hard to describe. Yeah, that's the important part. It's like you're not going to have fun all the time. Cargo bay of potato chips sold by weight, not by volume. Do you think CIG will have weight affect center of gravity? I do believe so. And I don't think that it'll be like your ship will fundamentally start flying completely different. What I think what's going to happen is you'll use up more fuel, or if like one of your thrusters gets damaged, then you'll start feeling that change in the center of gravity because that thruster was keeping you straight. So I 100% believe that we will have some sort of weight mechanic. That weight mechanic, if it's not loaded properly, will affect the performance of your ship, at least in some way, shape, or form. And if you get damaged, you'll see that more profoundly. That sounds complicated, but with all the systems CIG has done, shouldn't be too complicated to implement. The question is when, which is with a lot of stuff. There's a large contingent of players that prefer immersive pseudo or full RPGs over adrenaline junkie hair on fire combat. 2 valid communities in one game. Yeah, and I think the difference is that Star Citizen is much more, has always been much more built around patience. Planning and execution is a huge part. Star Citizen will reward players who enjoy games like Arma or Euro Truck Sim or Tarkov. And those sorts of games are not Call of Duty or Battlefield. They're much more, they're still combat based and they still have lots of high octane, but they're in spurts or in various locations. A lot of those like Arma and Squad, those sorts of experiences require transportation, planning, preparation, and then execution. That's what I expect for Star Citizen in the long run. People have already called Star Citizen Starkov for a while for a reason. Bro, but Arma is tolerable because of saved loadouts. Yeah, to a degree, but you still have to like find those loadouts and build them. You usually don't start off in most Arma groups with the loadouts you want. You have to go to a place where you can get the loadouts and put them on and that kind of stuff. And I do believe that CIG will have saved loadouts, but they won't do that until they have the other technologies available. And my guess is CIG will say, sure, you can have this saved loadout, which you can have sent to you, but timer. You're going to have to wait your time because CIG because Star Citizen at its core, you shouldn't want to die in Star Citizen. Like you die too quickly in Star Citizen right now, and people they don't give a shit about their life right now. What CIG is going to do is make it more and more difficult that if you die, you're going to lose a lot more than if you actually were around. So. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? Enjoyed your Fix My Fleet videos. I think I only did like 2 of them, but thank you. Which were so long ago. But yeah, I'm part of InfoRunners, and InfoRunners has a lot of really good Fix My Fleet stuff. Any infos on the ships will be allowed when/if Star Citizen someday really starts. What do you mean? All ships will be allowed. Every ship in the game, every ship that's sold will be liable at some point. CIG give medical insurance payments. I mean, that's also another thing that's going to happen. My ship is also blows up really quickly currently in Star Citizen. Yes, that's the other thing to take into account is that ship's time to death is way too high, and player time to death is way too high. Like, they have escape pods. They want you to be able to use an escape pod. So they need to make it so that ships aren't destroyed, and that's one of the reasons why they have the new fuse system coupled with the more component-based, because the idea is instead of having health pools for ships, which is what they have now, the idea is that to destroy a ship, you need to hit like its reactor or its power plant or some other thing that will have explosive damage. But the 99 out of 10 times you're going, like 90% of the time you're shooting a ship, you will disable a ship and not blow it up. And it'll take a lot longer to blow up a ship than to disable it, which will give crew a time to either fix or abandon the ship. That's the long-term goals, and that's one of the things why resource management is being put in the game. Can't wait until ships don't blow up. They should introduce fuel dumping. At some point, they will. I guess I didn't mean fun, like Call of Duty. I play all the job strategy games. I meant it's like RimWorld is awesome. Like RimWorld's awesome. That's the important thing to remember, though, because like what one person's fun is not another person's fun. I enjoy RimWorld. I enjoy like Kerbal Space Program, but I also enjoy Darktide. Like, that just came out, the beta, I fucking loved it. I'm going to play it as much as I can when it comes out, because I love the 40K aesthetic. I love that kind of gameplay, co-op stuff. I played a lot of Arma. I played a lot of DayZ. I haven't played Squad, but I've heard it's pretty similar. Like, I am much more of a varied player, but for me, for instance, I like strategy games, but I'm terrible at them. So I don't play them on harder difficulties because I just don't bother. Like Civilization is one of the oldest games I've played. Warcraft and Civilization were the first two real games I played, and Age of Empires. So I'm really a strategy gamer is my core, but I'm terrible at them. So I don't play them on stream. And when I play them on my own, I play them at like the easiest difficulties or moderate difficulties because I am not very good at them. I'm also okay at Twitch shooters. I'm not a pro at it, and I enjoy them, but you know, I can only take them for so long. So it's important to remember that not all, like Star Citizen at its core is not going to be a Twitch shooter, shoot 'em up sort of thing. You could even spread radiation from the reactors. That's something that's going to happen as well. If you damage a reactor, it could start causing radiation and it hurt people as well. Reach and clear Starliner is going to be fun. Yeah. Can't wait for manual startup routines. And that's one of the things they've showed off multiple times with like early concept models. So back in 2020, they showed off that. The idea of doing resource startups and stuff like that. It's going to be fun going through the steps for starting up like an Apollo rocket. I don't think it'll ever be that complicated. I think at most you'll have 4 or 5 different things you have to hit. Or you can just hit the auto starter and it'll start up. But as CIG has said in the past, they want to balance fun versus realism. Like if you just want to just turn on your ship, just hit the ship turn on button. But if you want to be like more milsim, you can go like flick, 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 flick. You'll know what buttons you need to push and in what order. And in some cases, you might be able to flick 3 buttons to get it started up and start taking off, and then flick the last 2 buttons while you're taking off, and you'll be much faster than the person who just hit the auto starter. So rewarding players who know the startup routines, the startup sequence of their ships, to know how much power needs to be put into the system before you can take off and those sorts of things. We've already started to see that a little bit with the ramp up that it takes for your ships once they've turned on to get ready to go airborne. So I've heard of, I mean, I know lots of people play Hell Let Loose. It's a fun game, but I've seen it played, but I haven't played it myself. I just haven't had time to play those sorts of games. Why haven't they implemented cargo missions like ED, move X amount of cargo to A to B? We haven't, you just have to buy and sell. A, servers, B, AI. They want to, but it's part of the Quanta system, which hasn't been fully implemented. They have to figure out the dynamic missions, because right now the way the missions kind of run is not how the mission systems will run in the future. The missions that we get will be generated based off of probability volume. Probability volume is how likely is X going to happen in this area based off of the quanta, which is the individual actors that a quantum tracks that are not seen by the player, but they play in the back end. How, like, if there are too many pirates, the missions will generate, which are anti-pirate missions. If there are too many security, or if there's too many cargo but not enough mining, you might need to get mining missions, those sorts of things. So the mission system is going to be more fluctuating depending on what's going on behind the scenes. And they want to get that implemented before they do those cargo missions, because those cargo missions will be dependent on this factory is running, but there's a lot of pirates activity in this area, so the amount of coal going to this system is down. So now suddenly the game will generate coal missions for you to take coal to this location. So you've got a reason to do that. I do what I gotta do, Paul. Jump in the RTS and max difficulty. That's how you learn. But it's not fun for me. It's like it's just not worth it. It's just frustrating, and I don't play games to get frustrated. So it's like, yeah. So should we expect to see a sequence spoof from Airplane soon? Probably. I'm sure Jared has already made that joke somewhere. He probably has it sitting in a list of jokes that he wants to use for an ISC at some point. As long as a normal keyboard plus mouse is enough to play the game, it's fine. Yeah, probably. I mean, it's already fine. You can actually play Star Citizen on controllers. They work pretty fine too. I think trains in the landing zones is a reminder to slow things down. It's part of the reason. Yeah, it's designed to slow things down. If I recall correctly, and someone actually reached back and found this for me, but this is something that was mentioned by Chris and the team well long ago, back at the very beginning of the development phase. Chris said that he was inspired for Star Citizen by a paper that was done by the original creators of Ultima Online, who he knew because he worked at Origin, which basically said their theory was that players get more from downtime than they do from gameplay. That MMOs are successful because of their social interactions over their hype gameplay. You can have the best, tightest gameplay in the universe, but that won't necessarily keep people playing your game or have them have fond memories of your game to come back to. It's the downtime. It's the time between raids. It's organizing raids. It's talking with people in a common area. It's those sorts of interactions in a guild hall, those sorts of interactions that build relationships, that build memories. And so at its core, Star Citizen is built on waiting. That's why there are landing zones, because you're expected to explore those landing zones. You're going to spend extended amounts of time in those landing zones, which is why they need you to repair ships, rearm ships, refit ships, waiting for loading of ships. Food, clothing, all these other things are going to be needed. So you might go, while my ship's getting loaded, I'm going to go to the local restaurant and get some food, because you might run into another player and you might start talking and so on and so forth. So the Star Citizen at its core, a lot of its gameplay elements are built around the idea of downtime. They want to build in downtime to slow you down, to make you think and to make you plan. Hey, Axis. I hope there will be cool and a long research way, and then the even longer production chain. I kind of doubt for a long startup sequence will survive the fun check, but for all but the larger ships. I don't think we're going to see long startup sequence. I think you'll see a 20-second or 30-second startup sequence versus a player who knows how to do manual startup sequence can do it in 5 or 10. I don't think it's a situation where you're going to sit there going, ugh. It's like you push the button and you're going to hear the flip, 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 flip. You're going to see the buttons or the stuff automatically starts flipping on, or you'll see this ship kind of like, like lights will flicker and you'll see noise and you hear it go, and then the voice will come on and be like, Anvil Aerospace, or whatever, Robert Space Industries, a journey worth taking, and everything kind of booting up and around you and that kind of stuff, because that's the hype things that Chris wants, which it will be visually entertaining, but still more time consuming than if you know how to flick the switches properly. Slow gameplay with no payoff makes me think of combining the desert and Spaceballs. That was my first MMO until I moved to EVE and put 10 years in that MMO. You said they'll try for 5 systems for beta. Why do I think that the 5 are not enough? 15 to 20 would be ideal. I mean, it's not like CIG is going to stop making systems once they have 5 systems. A lot of the stuff that's holding back systems development has to do with the server tech, server meshing and persistence are the 2 things that are holding back systems more than anything else, like planetary systems, star systems. Once those things are done with, I would expect much faster development of those systems, because there's just nothing left. There's no reason that the people who are making planets can't just make more planets. We know that they're working on the Nyx system as of right now. They've built out most of Pyro already. I think the only thing they don't have is the gas giant for Pyro, which makes sense. They probably are waiting for the Gen 12 renderer to have to be imported into the game that deals with clouds, because that was a huge deal, and it probably makes it easier for them to build it. It's also not really a flyable gas giant like Crusader is, so we'll see how that works out. But once we jump forward to those other systems, the thing that'll be holding them back is how fast they can make the system, not the other tech. So it's also important to remember that statement of 5 to 10 systems was like 2014. It was a long time ago. So things may have changed. The payoff is fun. Depends on the payoff. Like,
Hey, a tip.
Psycho 7, super shorted $20. Hey Paul, just wanted to say thanks for your content. Great stuff to listen to while at work. So after Pyro, what do you think is a realistic expectation for lead time between new systems being released? 1 or 2 a year?
Depends. I think early on, thank you for that $20, by the way, Psycho. I think Nyx is likely to be done within 6 months of the release of Pyro. And I think the next system will likely be done within 3 to 6 months after that. So I think it'll be 2 patches after Pyro is in, before Nyx is in. Again, it depends on how long it takes for them to get server meshing done. Because if they do what I think it is, which is the end of this next year is when Pyro comes in, at the earliest, if not the beginning of next year, of 2024. If that happens, then we will see likely Nyx will be closer to be completion. One of the biggest things that's been slowing down development is they just now started on the development of the interior of Ruin Station, which is the main landing zone for Pyro. Because they're just starting to work on Ruin Station, they've worked on the exterior. I think we saw a little bit of exterior at CitizenCon. That's taking them a little bit longer to get done. However, we already have the landing zone for Nyx. It's Levski. It's Delamar. It's been in the game for a very long time. We've had it working, and they haven't stopped working on it since the game started. We know they've worked on it with lighting. We know they've worked on it with medical facilities. The medical facility for Delamar is in Delamar. We know they've updated some of the assets, but Delamar is done. So What really is holding them back with Nyx is just jump points, getting to finishing up the planets, and Nyx is inside of a dark nebula, so maybe some of the effects they want to work on, which we see things in things like Odin, will have something similar. So, and as they go along, they're building up these tools, these pallets, which we've seen with ships in the past as well, and they'll be able to just use those pallets to develop more and more systems as they go forward, because a type of planet, an ice giant, is going to look like an ice giant, maybe different, colored a little differently, but it's going to be about the same. So we're going to see a lot of things going forward where we'll use the same palette and maybe experiment here or there, but it won't be that much of a difference. And I think the speed will pick up over time. So. They even showed Habs Rulewski, yeah, with adjustable lights. Let me go back up and see the stuff. On that point of downtime, I entirely understand that. I've had points where I loved just going out on the food court on a station just to sit down on one of the tables after doing the mission. Yeah, it adds a little bit of that. The beeps, sweeps, and creeps. Yes. I just got home from public star party. Oh, nice, Axis. Drake's Irish person say, Drake, fuck your life support. With a boot up line. The time it takes to create a system, I know I understand it, is how important is that system is for low/story/squad 42. So it might take much longer than some unimportant side system, which isn't much more than a bridge between two systems. Yeah, I mean, like I've said, Castra is a great example of a system that is very low in terms of its requirement to make, because it's a former UE military base that has been opened up to the public, but it's only 2 planets in the system. It's got one space station. It's fairly small. It's a pretty easy dunk if they develop some of the pallets for it. But I don't think that would take 2 years to develop. It might take 3 months if once they have all the other tech working, and they've already had a lot of that tech working. I hope it gives me more than 20 FPS in Orison. A lot of that has to do with Gen 12. They've talked about they've already ported over the Gen 12 renderer for clouds. So as Gen 12 and Vulkan get implemented, we'll start to see a lot of those performance increases happening. Yeah, we might see 5 systems before dynamic meshing. I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that within 3 years we'll have 5 systems. Within 3 years of 4.0. Because I think Pyro, then 6 months Nyx, then 3 to 6 months Castra, then 3 months Odin, because by then we should probably see Squad 42 in some state of release, if not announced. And then we've got systems like Magnus and systems like Terra, though I don't think Terra is going to be super quick for that. And other systems like that, which will pop out. But we'll get to the point where we're getting one system every patch. Kind of like how we get a ship every patch. It'll be something like that. What I mean is fun is the payoff. Not everything's going to be a grind for cash or something. Fun is fun. Yeah, exactly. It depends on what stuff you're doing, but each fun is going to be dependent. Also, in devs, once the tools are made and the systems are in place, creation speeds up exponentially. So 1 year, then 6 months, then 1 month, then weeks. Exactly. And they've already said they've been able to make a month. They've been able to make a moon in a week. So, and that has a lot to do with tools. What can you automate? What can you do with procedural generation tools, and then use tools that you can go in and tweak very quickly? There was one thing that I think was mentioned either in a monthly report or in one of the ISCs, that Montreal was building a tool to automate the crash for like derelicts that crash. The trail that they have to make for like the crash. So if the ship comes down and creates like a divot in the ground that leads from behind it, that trail takes them now a month to create for one singular landing zone. But they have built a system, a tool, which should reduce. They've already either it's finished or it was being tested at that time, that they believed would take that time from a month. It wasn't a month. I think it was a week of doing it, from a week to a day or a couple of hours. those are the kind of tools that they're working to just develop to just speed up the time just a little bit for each of these planets. Pretty much, and I'll reiterate this because I don't think Jin is here, but Jin will say this as well. Pretty much everything in the game is fundamentally tied to persistent entity streaming or server meshing. Those are really fucking needed. You need those things to get in game because they're massive bottlenecks. The other major bottleneck after that is going to be getting Quanta, because Quantum is in the game now, but Quantum needs to expand. It needs to become more important and grow. Those three things are the things why, you know, if you ask, well, what about this, or this? Why isn't this mission in the game? Where are we going to see more systems? When are we going to see more ships? When are we going to get more players? Those three reasons. Yeah, and by making a tool for the job, anybody and not just a special programmer can use it. Exactly. So an artist could build a crash site in a day is a lot better than having to have a team of 3 build it in a week. Because yeah, a week and a day isn't that much different, but that means that artist could then spend an entire week building 5 crash sites instead of having to take a month or 2 to build 5 crash sites. That speeds up things much faster, and their hope being that eventually they can not even have to hand make it at all. They can find ways of procedurally making it that still look as good as they did hand making. That requires other stuff, yeah. And artists are, for better or worse, far easier to come by and far cheaper to hire than in the game industry. Yep. That's what Jared has been saying. All the new stuff needs PES to be done in order to finish being made. Yep. We've known this for years. We've known this since at least 2020, that almost everything in the game is fundamentally reliant on persistence and server meshing. We're just finally at the point where we're that close. And by that close, I mean within a year. Which seems like a long time because it is, but comparative to the last 10 years, that's almost nothing. Good evening, citizens. Discrepancies are reliant those three. Remember the long-range probe for exploration that was on the roadmap. Dependencies are reliant on those three. Yeah. Yep. That's right. Pretty much everything. Everything we saw for Squadron, the stuff that we saw at CitizenCon, that was like the EVA, the AI, Chris he pretty much said in the conversation, he said, we're waiting on 4.0. So all of those things will not come until at least 4.0, which is server meshing. So all of that cool shit ain't coming until 4.0 comes out. Either it'll come out with 4.0 or after 4.0. What's needed for location markers and quantum travel enabled location markers? Right now, it's an updated HUD system and the quantum boost functionality. That's it. They need to update the map systems and that sort of thing, which they're working on right now with the new map. We have boxes that mark locations right now. Yes, but those are for boxes, not for location themselves. That's a completely different aspect than going into your marker and marking it on the HUD of your map to mark that location. What the marker is showing you for the boxes is just the location of the box, not an arbitrary invisible marker. So. You know if CIG contacted CCP, EVE Online, to have a talk about private server tech? Is it comparable? No. I'll give you a hint. Not a single MMO that exists uses the exact same technology or architecture. Because every game is unique in what it needs to do and not do. And as a result, some aspects won't make any sense. Like EVE doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not a skill-based, it's a turn-based, or it's much more WoW and much less Arma in terms of its progression. You hit buttons and button action goes, cooldowns continue. So the stuff you need for that is much different from a dogfighting simulator that also has larger ships. So as a result, no, it's different. Yeah, tab target, thank you. This was I'm trying to think of. Oh, 7 to all. Once those three functional and stable, a landslide of things will be held up and begin. Yeah, I have said this before. That is the dam that when that bursts, we'll start to see a flood of new content coming out. I do not think we will see a flood of new content with 4.0. I don't think even the patch after 4.0. 4.1 will not have this flood of new content. I think you will start to see an uptick of stuff that's coming out, and then by 4.2 and 4.3, you'll see this gradual rise of more and more things being added per patch until we realize, you'll sit there and realize we get like 5 gameplay aspects being released in the patch per patch. So every 3 months, significant numbers of things are going from from nothing to tier 0, or from nothing to tier 1, or from tier 0 to tier 1 or tier 2, and so on and so forth. Much faster iterations on those gameplay aspects as you go because of tools and other aspects being blocked. No game uses it. No game uses Star Citizen's technology. We'll use Star Citizen's technology. No one else really uses the same technology because just the way what is important isn't as it's hard to describe, but you can think of it as each game has a custom tailored suit that it wears because it's designed to cover the exact locations it needs to cover and nothing more. Because it's very expensive to build these systems, and building a catch-all system, producing manufactured mass market clothes to cover the bits of these games doesn't work because it would put way too much effort into things that aren't flexible and can't be changed. So you need to build these systems for those specific reasons. No existing game engine can do all the things that Star Citizen needs. And to go even broader, no existing game engine does everything that every game needs anyways. Every game needs its own custom touches to it, especially when you're going into the MMO sphere where it's a lot more complicated. There's some things you can copy and paste that you can just kind of come out of the box with like Unreal or with CryEngine or Unity. There are some game styles you can do, like single player shooters are much easier to do with those systems because they already have a bunch of tools built and a bunch of assets ready for those to go. That's not too difficult. But when you start adding multiplayer, you start adding any kind of custom dialogue, custom characterization, custom weapons, custom equipment, custom gameplay aspects, it becomes a lot more complicated. So it's what I'm trying to say is it's not something that's unique to Star Citizen. It happens with every game. Yeah, I mean, no game uses this tech. We don't even have fully seamlessly transitions from scale to this game. That's true. But I see a lot of people who've made comments saying like Star Citizen is the most ambitious title, that it's going to change gaming when it comes out. And I don't want to do this, but it's like throw some water on you. Star Citizen is not some revolutionary game that's going to change all of gaming. Nothing Star Citizen's doing is fundamentally new. The thing that's fundamentally new about Star Citizen is that it's taking a bunch of things which don't usually mesh and smashing them together and saying, now Keith, and trying to make it work. That's the ambitious part. It's the scale and scope with all of the different features. Any one gameplay feature could be its own game. Mining in Star Citizen could be its own $30 game on Steam. Go to location, find areas, mine, take it to a refinery, refine, buy, get money, and buy upgrades, buy little gadgets to help you improve, get online friends to help you out. It is its own game. Salvage will be its own game. Mercenary work and bounty hunting will be its own game, but it's attached to Star Citizen. Of course, it'll be dumbed down. Like, you're never going to get Hard Space Shipbreaker, but we'll get Hard Space Shipbreaker Lite. We're not going to be able to cut off every single panel, but we'll be able to, using beams, embrace the beams, melt off all of the hull. We won't put them into nice little neat sections, but we'll be able to remove the whole thing, power wash style, And you will be able to take up the superstructure, but it'll be a separate instance. You'll be able to pull out the fuses and the components, but you won't be able to like rip out the seats and all that kind of thing. It'll just be more granular. Can you play any space sim that lets you have a ship inside out? I don't know what you're talking about. The ambitious part is the architecture. Yeah, a lot of the stuff they want to do. I would say the ambitious part is the gameplay. It's just the amount of gameplay with what they have. What stretch goal are you most excited for, and which ones happen to be which would you not expect to happen? I honestly, I have not even paid attention to the stretch goals in forever. I guess if we're talking about just gameplay elements in general, I'm much more excited for people transportation, like AI transportation, because that's cool. Being able to get an AI to walk onto your ship and then, you know, ask for like, hey, take me to this location, and taking care of their needs, or even just loading up a bunch of like average people on a local shuttle route and taking them from point A to point B is kind of a cool idea too. Now, Keith, so Star Citizen's pulling an Aphrodite, exactly. I don't know. I hope it gets Warhammer like Steam, but that's a hell of an effort. It gains Warhammer like Steam. What are you talking about, Jeremiah? People mad about Beam Citizen are my favorite. Their salt fuels me. Oh, hail the magic space lasers. The big difference between Star Citizen for any other game is that when you inside a planet and you want to see a moon on the horizon, you can just leave and go there seamlessly. I mean, No Man's Sky does that too, but in No Man's Sky, you're not having to like check your oxygen levels and check for radiation and maintain ship systems and plan your route. The travel between your planet and that moon is 5 minutes. With Star Citizen, that travel between the planet and the moon could kill you if you're not prepared right. That's the major difference. Waiting for the day when we can rip out components and tune them with the Endeavor. I mean, the Endeavor is the last ship we're going to get. What gameplay loop, not tech, do you think will make the biggest challenge for the game? Like what loop? Bounty hunting. Nothing else is as complicated as bounty hunting. Because with bounty hunting, you're going to have to find a target. So you're going to have some sort of investigation, some way of scanning down where they are. So you have to know where they're going, where they are. Then you'll have to track down where they are. You'll have to find them. You'll have to disable them, not kill them.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Thank you. You'll have to disable them, not kill them, but not knock them out, because regen's a thing. So if you kill them, you're just basically letting them go free. So you have to find a way of disabling them, AI or player, and then bringing them back, storing them, and then returning them to the local security offices to get your reward. That whole process is like 7 or 8 different gameplay aspects. And I don't think people really understand that bounty hunting is going to be much more like a private investigator mission with some combat than it is going to be a mercenary mission with some investigation. A lot of what you're going to do is trying to sleuth out where people are going, where they are, who they've talked to, that sort of thing. So, no, I kept them on. I turned them back on. No Man's Sky is space, is SD, ED is HD, and Star Citizen is UHD. Bartending is the most complicated profession. How do you mix those drinks so perfectly? I don't think the Endeavor will be the last ship. It's too lucrative to stop making ships after release. No, yeah, I've already said that, but I mean, like, it's going to be the Endeavor is going to be, of the ships we have now, it'll be the last ship they make. It'll be the oldest last ship, because they've got to make so many other gameplay aspects before they get that out. But yeah, the point being, like, that alone, I don't know how they're going to do it. I have no fucking idea how they're planning on doing that. But CIG wants to tackle that now, which blows my mind. It's like, what the fuck are you thinking, Chris? That sounds nuts. Because to understand the lore, you shoot somebody, they regen. So you're bringing back effectively recycling instead of a person. And that person who you shot is going to regen into another body somewhere else. So they're still free to commit mayhem. So I do believe that bounty hunting is going to be not dead or alive, just alive. I think the only way you're going to get your bounty is by capturing them alive, because A, that makes sense in lore. B, it adds more intensity to the event. And C, it makes it so that bounty hunting, because it's so difficult and complicated, is going to have a high dollar value. It would justify the amount of money you're making, the insane amount of money you'll be making with bounty hunting compared to other actions, simply because it's going to require a nuts amount of time investment. In a perfect world, CIG will balance money making so that every profession makes about the same amount of money in about the same number of time. But that could mean that a bounty hunter takes 3 hours to find one bounty target and bring them in. And if they do, they'll make as much money as a miner has made in those same 3 hours, with much less risk. Will bounty hunters just commit oof to get away? They could. Which is why you're going to have to disable them before they know they know you're there. But of course, the flip side of that is bounty targets or players and AI will have more of a care for their own life, because they don't want to regen, because the cost and the downsides of regenning, things like medical insurance, things like medical costs, things like losing skills, things like getting reputation dings and other things like that. Other aspects of the game which will make a negative, because you also, every time you die, your imprint viability score, IVS, goes down, or VS, your viability score will go down, and then it reaches 0. You do the big death, and then regen, or you kind of have to create a brand new character that inherits all this money, but you have to pay taxes, and you get a huge reputation ding. So there'll be a bunch of reasons not to die. So it's a trade-off. Do you, as a criminal, fight off a bounty hunter to try to survive, surrender the bounty hunter because it's just faster for you to just go do your time and go back to, doing bad stuff later? Or do you kill yourself to try to get away and take that risk and that ding? So I don't think the Endeavor will be the last. Oh, yeah, let's see. One of the first concepts which got everything they could think of, but needs all of the back-end text to be done. Yeah. Drone Crew loses a little bit more of his soul every time someone mentions the Endeavor. Yep. Well, the bounties just commit oof, yeah. No more constant pew-pew bounties. Exactly. If they have the criminal's DNA ID, they could just redirect the imprint back to Kleischer. No, that's not how that works, because you can't redirect the connection in interspace with the Ibrahim sphere imprint. It doesn't work like that. So you can't redirect. You can force a criminal to imprint on a new location. So if they decide to oof themselves, they get to go back to wherever you've last imprinted them. Right? Everything you're carrying with you, maybe some rare items. Yeah, that too. Stuff, rare items and equipment that may be expensive. You get that back. Is there a reason they aren't putting higher tier healing beds or something like healing beds a la Corsair in their exploration vehicles? Do you see that changing? No. I see them having portable versions of them, but I don't see them ever putting huge ones. The reason why is because they want exploration to have some risk, and there is no risk if you can just respawn and plop right back to where you are. In fact, if you talk to some people like Tree believes that you won't ever actually be able to respawn in the Carrack. Because having the Carrack and the 890 jump have respawn beds loses their the viability of tier 1 beds. Personally, I think you'll still be able to respawn, but beds will require regen gel. They'll require resources. And when they require resources, you will use up a lot more resources. So you may only have 1 regen on those beds that are tier 2s, but tier 1s you may have like 5 or 6 because it's much more efficient with the gel. You can store a lot more more with it, that sort of thing. There'll be some sort of ability for it. But in general, CIG wants to make it the decision to go exploring a difficult decision. The constant mantra that CIG does when it comes to gameplay design is your decisions matter. Your choices matter. So you can't just kind of go willy-nilly like, I'm going to go explore space now. Because you die, you're going to go back to the very beginning. You're going to lose everything you collected. Regen should be shunted to prison, and bounty hunting just get paid less if you kill them. Kind of like, yeah, it's not like that. But you could also, yeah, try discovering where the bounty imprint is and put someone there to working for you. Yeah, stuff like that. I can almost guarantee you regen gel is going to be expensive as shit. Also, space is dangerous. You see that thing? It can kill you. That thing over there? It can kill you too. Is that a Hitchhiker's Guide reference? Yeah, basically. If you see right now when you regen, it says the Empire has compensated for your loss or something like that. It does say that in the regen. Eventually, it'll stop saying that. I'm with you there, X. I also want to play Dark Tide. It's fucking fun. Wouldn't you have to have a bunch of creepy copies of yourself to respawn? Doesn't work like that. Regen gel is a quick printing gel. So it's basically 3D printing a person is what regen is. So it's not like you have a bunch of sleeves waiting for you. They're created on the fly once the connection between your brain and the Ibrahim sphere is broken. Then the bed will automatically recognize that. The imprint will be then uploaded to your basically your consciousness will be stored in it will up to your last memories will be stored in the Ibrahim sphere. Then the bed will print you a new body and then upload your consciousness into that body. We should just send astronauts to Australia to train. Dell, we've actually done that before. I shit you not. It used to be a thing that the NASA astronauts used to go down to Australia. Mostly because there's a radio observatory in Australia, which was one of the few places where on that side of the globe that you could get transmissions. So astronauts would go down there to work with the locals down there to talk with other astronauts in orbit. And I'm almost certain that they went down to Australia to do some geologic expeditions as well when they were going to the moon. So they could have a better idea of like experiencing this sort of stuff. You think we're going to have to fix bills and taxes, have fixed bills and taxes to pay for like hangars and habs and such? Yes. You'll definitely will have taxes and fees. But if you're outside of civilized territory, those taxes will disappear, but fees may increase. There'll be meaningful gameplay in terms of where you're going. That's definitely a money sink they want to do. Death and taxes, baby. For everybody listening, don't text while you're driving, Jaybird. Don't even respond now. Just drive. Fifth Element vibes. Yeah, think of it like the Fifth Element scene where they reprint Lilu, right? That's effectively what regen gel is. I think there is now a deep space comm array. In the 50s or 60s, they had something like that too. I assume most ships with respawn medbed will have very limited uses unless they have a device that has lots of cargo space for regen gel, which is, I think, what the Apollo is really it's going to stand out for, is because it's going to have probably more efficient use of regen, more space for it for regen, and higher quality regen prints. That's the other thing, is that the bed that you respawn in will also have a quality factor. So the higher the quality of the bed is, the less of an impact on your viability score it will have. So effectively, you'll have more lives if you respawn at better beds. But if you decide to respawn at a shittier bed, maybe a tier 2, that'll have a bigger hit on your viability score, so you get closer to the big death that you'll have to reroll your character. Stop it, Jibbard. So if your bed says Acme, run away. Yeah. Paul has a back to tank. Food, water, and supplies will be something that the entire NPC crew will use it. Yes, and players will use it too. It will be things more complicated, like ingredients to craft recipes. I think the CIG wants to do things like cooking in the future, and I'm assuming that the reason why they want to do that is because they want to have more of a reason for people to have balanced diets and to have some advantages for that, because people who have better balanced diets will probably have better, more bonuses and less negatives, or at least not as many negatives. We already have that with hydration and food and stuff like that. So, but please, CIG, don't make terrible vitamin system like Atlas. I don't think they will, but I do think they'll have some sort of bonus for like full rounded meals. You'll have it'll probably your hunger will go down slower and your thirst will go down slower, or maybe it'll increase your skill gain rate or whatever. So I don't think it'll ever get to the level of Scum and Atlas. That sounds way too complicated for CIG. Though there's definitely going to be some sort of system that incentivizes players to use more well-rounded stuff. Yeah, using meat and vegetation found on planets as food. Yeah, that can extend your exploration or your travels. Yeah, scavenging and living off the land. How much of an armor difference do you think armored variants, for instance, Starfarer, Gemini, and Apollo, will have? So armor in Star Citizen is ablative. So it's not designed as like armor it's more like reactive armor. Well, I guess it's ablative armor. It's designed as a layer on top of the hull. So that armor is, at least in the initial pitches, the concept was it will reflect ballistic ammo. So ballistic will take a lot harder. It'll take a lot more ballistic rounds to get through armor, but ballistics will penetrate shields. However, energy weapons will be able to deal with shields. Will have to be like, but won't penetrate shields, so let's go through it, but they'll burn through the actual armor. So it'll be depending on the weapons you're using. And also remember that in the future, hull health pools will go away, and it's just going to be components. So components and pipes will be what matters in terms of a ship's function, not necessarily how much you've hit its wing or its fuselage. So the armor itself will help protect you against that, will give you some extra rounds to survive. And because fighters and other ships are going to have to be more accurate when they're fighting to be able to actually hit something that matters and not just go through empty hull, then you'll have to, the armors will start to matter in those sorts of aspects. If you're by yourself in an exploration mission, a high risk of death and no medbed is fine. But if ships are dedicated to multi-crew exploration, no medbed Corsair is not viable. It's suicide. Then don't use a Corsair. The Corsair is not designed for long-range exploration. It's designed for surveying a system, maybe when it even already exists, but maybe into deep space. It's important to remember that exploration in Star Citizen is not strange new worlds and new civilizations and making love to green alien women. Exploration in Star Citizen is likely going to be maps. Lots and lots of scanning and mapping. And sometimes you'll find stuff, sometimes you won't. And if you find stuff, you can sell that data back to somebody else, or you can explore it yourself. But you're not going to be finding new systems every 5 minutes. This isn't Elite Dangerous, where you can just go in a direction and just scan planets for exploration data. You're going to scan an area that's already well traveled, or maybe just hasn't been updated in a while. Maybe go out to the Oort cloud of a system and scan that area for more updated data. And maybe you'll find a jump point, but most of the time you won't. pathfinding, basically. At USGS, you know, USGS survey, US Geological Survey. Teams that update, that kind of do surveying missions and update maps and stuff like that in very distant locations, that sort of thing. Yeah, and Corsair is designed to explore other people's cargo base. Someone fact check the no green aliens, please. Surveying trade routes, figure out how much traffic, where a mantis would best sit. I mean, what? Green alien women coming in 319. A Corsair is an exploration ship in the same way that the Gladius explores your hull. It could be used for exploration. It has the range. It has the cargo capacity. It has enough space for a vehicle. It has all the aspects of being an exploration ship. It's just not designed for deep space, long range exploration. Same with the 600 exploration variant, or the Aquila, the Connie variant of that has the exploration ship. Same with the Dur. These are all ships which are designed for exploration in the sense that they can go out into areas and loiter for a long time. Not that they're going to be there forever. Corsair could survey for a mining operation where a team of vultures could show up. Or you could pop a fucking rock in the back and then go out into the long range and then use your rocks to go surface mining and then come back. You know? It could be used to transport goods to a distant settlement that's being built on the ass end of a moon on the edge of a fucking system. You know, a whole C won't necessarily go out there. Even a whole A or B won't necessarily go out there because it requires some infrastructure. But like a raft may not have the range, but a Corsair could. However, there is a word. The 600i gold will get past and get a medbed. That's true. The 600i exploration variant might get a medbed, but I don't think it's going to be a tier 1. It'll have to be a tier 2. Yeah, ship got lost in the system. Go find it. Go find it in this system and bring back its cargo, or find out where it is and bring back the bodies so we can bury them. That sort of thing. The Odyssey is for long-term deep space.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Right? Yeah, the Odyssey is more like a pioneer ship. It gets sent out to survey and map and hold an area. It's like a flying space station. They even say that. Jax even says that it's a flying space station. It's designed to be like a frontier outpost. It's a flying frontier fort, where you go out. The crew explores. They kind of top themselves off. They refuel in situ. They have ships that can fly to and from. They have large cargo bays, places for vehicles. The Odyssey is the long-range, sitting around and waiting kind of exploration. The Carrack is like the deep space, long-range, going out for a year and never coming back. Like self-sufficient for long ranges. Where the Odyssey is sort of the same boat, but it's more of a much more of a survey ship, whereas the Carrack is much more of an explorer ship. Yeah, it's an expedition versus an expedition versus an exploration. They showed the inside of the Odyssey bridge in Ship Talk. I don't remember that. They could have. Oh, I'm getting a little tired, y'all. So it's about 3 hours in. I will not be, so let me give you a little update. I am not going to be coming back to stream again until Saturday, but on Saturday, we are going to be doing a special Orktober episode of The Spice Must Roll. Now, The Spice Must Roll has not really been doing much recently because I've been busy with other things as well. But for those of you who don't know, The Spice Must Roll, or TSMR, is a long-running series that I've been doing for a couple of years where I bring people together to do space-based tabletop RPGs. We've done Star Wars, we've done Star Trek, we've done The Expanse, we've done we did, what was it? Stars Without Number, and we've also done the latest 40K RPG, which is known as Wrath and Glory. So the crew who did Wrath and Glory campaign, Shadows of the Aquila, they were the last ones we did, and I talked with them when we finished that up if they wanted to do an special orc episode for Orktober. And they were all keen. Loken not so much, but the rest of them were all keen for it. So we're going to be doing a special one-shot episode where the crew has made up their own orc players, and I've got a whole little mini adventure for them to run on, and they're going to be playing orcs doing a job. So expect hilarity, expect bonkers brutality, and expect chaos and mayhem. So if you want a good old-fashioned laugh riot in a grim, dark future, come join us Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Robston. Yeah. So yeah, some 40K lore. 40K tabletop RPG, what we'll be doing. And after that, we'll be doing Captain's Table. I haven't yet contacted anybody. I haven't figured out if anybody wants to be part of it, so I'll have to kind of reach out and grab some people to bring together. So we'll be doing a Captain's Table, but then Sunday, I won't be doing anything either. So I'm just doing today and Saturday and just taking some breaks because I got to catch up with some writing, and I also got to get a couple of more videos done. There should be a video out on Saturday if I play all my cards right and start doing some stuff. So I'm not doing 40K lore. Not yet, at least. So so yeah. So make sure you check that out, and yeah. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, make sure that you subscribe. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like icon if you enjoyed this video or you enjoyed the stream. And make sure you comment down below if you're watching this after the fact. Any of the things we talked about, want to know your thoughts as well. If you're watching this on Twitch, hit that follow button. We're already at 15,721. If I get 16,000 followers by the end of the year, I'd be very happy. And of course, you can always find us. You can always find us on twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. We're live Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays usually. Thursdays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, and Saturdays and Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. So, and like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. Later, y'all.